It's been happening, and all these questions we've been asking regarding Tanga, Eleweka, Isieleweke, handshake, we're now beginning to understand the import and the details around it.
Where these things have been going.
Yes, it's now called a bare-knuckled fight. The gloves, as they say,
are off.
Not coming off,
They're
off. And this is really...
It's interesting.
Yes.
We'll be discussing this in
Totally.
detail in the next half hour. Also, that's the same headline on the Standard this morning with the two pictures. All-out war.
Yeah.
Right? And at the top of that is the MPs allied to the Kieleweke side, and this is all the Prime Minister's side. These are the ones who are calling for impeachment of the Deputy President. And then the bottom picture is the Deputy President's supporters saying, bring it on.
Right.
Battle lines drawn as MPs allied to the President and Raila challenge the Deputy to resign for undermining the head of state. They lay out charges against the DP pointing to looming impeachment. Ruto's camp accuses Raila of plotting his downfall so that he can join government. All right. Other headlines.
COVID-19 global pandemic. The World Health Organization boss has finally declared. The World Health Organization last evening says this is a global pandemic. The virus, first reported in China, has hit 114 countries. He was speaking during a media briefing in Geneva, and Tedros Ghebreyesus labeled the new virus and its spread a pandemic. Until now, they've been reluctant to categorize the virus as a pandemic, arguing that such a declaration has major political and economic ramifications. Now, we've seen across the world with the drop in so many stock prices in different countries, from Europe to Africa, across the board, this has affected the economies of many countries already. Politically, people are making statements. Borders have been closed. Countries have been shut down. People are not going to work. People are not going to school. All of that now taken into consideration probably then fueled this decision to call it a global pandemic. And that's where we're going from now.
Yeah.
We have sentiments coming out of the German Chancellor, for example, that, according to experts, we don't know who she has gotten this information from, but saying that if it continues in the manner that it is going right now, it's possible that 60 to 70% of the world's population could be infected. Now, I see this as a teeter-tottering on alarmist at this point, but of course, precedented on what she said, that according to experts within Germany, perhaps have said that if it continues in the manner in which it is, we're looking at billions of people being infected.
Is she known to make careless statements?
Yeah. Perhaps this is a thing. Yeah.
Angela Merkel.
Yes. Is she known... Let's put it...
Is she known to be alarmist?
Let me make it politically incorrect. Is she like Trump?
No, she's not.
She's not.
She's actually the opposite of Trump.
Both of them speak the truth. Just not how they package it.
Yeah. She's more PC, I would say. And obviously...
Eric, no, wait.
Trump said
you use
it
the
will
word
pass.
truth alongside
Trump.
Merkel. I can understand, she represents a lot of it, but with reference to Trump, are you using this to sort of like indicate or perhaps bring forth a disparity in the subject, or are you saying that the gentleman
Trump speaks the truth,
that he's truthful?
He
Yes.
speaks his truth.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to put it.
All right.
Yeah.
If that's what we're talking about, then in that case, yes.
Yeah. And then bring it closer to home. We have seen a lot of headlines actually asking why the coronavirus, I feel like it's a little saddest, has not hit Africa. I mean, why is the world waiting for us to be hit by this?
We have
this
over
thing?
100 cases of coronavirus in Africa.
Yeah, but they not like Italy, and they expect that we have stereotypically poor health services.
When you talk about diseases, tell me, where do you think of?
Yeah, Africa, the
Yes,
dark.
And why?
Disease and
Backwater.
war and
Because
plunder.
any time something negative happens on this continent, it receives publicity like nothing else.
Yeah.
It's not that it's a bad thing. It has actually helped us curb very, very many dangerous diseases.
True.
But it appears, because of the economic condition that is spoken of as though it's permanent on this continent, the prevailing circumstances and those around it, poverty, according to what we keep hearing, and illness are synonymous. Meaning, if you're poor, the likelihood of being unwell is very high. It's actually not true.
Yes, and clearly, given this, maybe that will help us with our optics, because if that was the truth, then we would be dying like flies all over the place.
Consider questions which are not being asked, okay? How is it? Remember, there was this talk of patient zero, and the whole world was actually treated to understanding the concept of patient zero. So everyone now understands the concept of patient zero, okay? It has nothing to do with failing a maths exam. Nothing whatsoever.
Oh, thanks.
Yes. But now we have a situation where even with the original thinking behind it, it's becoming a little difficult to understand the relevance of patient zero in all this. Because there are people who are exhibiting the condition, but didn't go to China. Then they said, okay, maybe they came from Italy. Didn't go to Italy. Perhaps Iran. Didn't go to Iran. So now they're looking for contact details to see where it is you can attach this epidemiologically. It's proving challenging. So this narrative is now having to change. And we're asking the question, is it possible that what we are referring to as a COVID-19 is something that has existed, but in its current form, it's taking the shape of most flus. They mutate. Every
Yes, for
season, you find that the vaccines that are given, shots that are given to people, flu vaccines, have to change because the virus has mutated. So if it has, what was it before it mutated? And why is it that it seems to emanate in certain countries?
Certain climates.
Thank you. I think you've got the... I will now rest my case there. You've got the drift, because these are questions that need to be asked.
So if you're wondering how much we are affected, we're told that only 11 African states have been affected, and they've been outlined here in the standard.
Details?
We are told that the DRC Minister of Health, Eteni Longondo, confirmed on Tuesday that the first positive case of coronavirus was a person of foreign nationality who arrived from Belgium and who was checked on arrival to the African country. And besides the latest one report in the DRC, there are 102 cases reported in 10 countries, according to the African Union Center of Disease Control. And the countries so far affected are Algeria, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, DRC, Egypt, Morocco, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, Togo, Tunisia. Most of the cases in Africa involve foreigners or citizens returning from Europe.
Right, I thought in the Tunisia case, we saw the lady who passed on, who had just come from furlough in Italy. So this is interesting because not yet cases of
Okay, let's
African
ask the
descent.
question. Have black people on this continent actually exhibited these very, very, very telling signs of this COVID-19?
No.
And if so, how many?
No, the answer is no, not yet.
Remember, all the reports that you hear, if you read this article, there's talk about it, that Africa will probably be the worst hit. They're not wrong though. They say that we don't have a robust enough health system to be able to... Now remember, in the past, the fear of HIV was it might leave Africa and go to other countries. Now we are in danger of something coming from some other country and coming
being
to
imported
us.
Should we lock our borders the way they would to us?
So there are all those many issues. First of all,
answer
the
that question.
capacity of our health system, the capacity of our governments as well. Even right now, when you talk about dealing with the coronavirus, the biggest thing about coronavirus is testing. What's our capacity in testing? You hear governors saying, yes, we've established level 5 hospitals are now ready. You can come in and test. But at what point would somebody leave some village somewhere in Kakamega County and go to the level 5 in Kakamega town?
Right.
For testing. So the very, very many issues about our capacity as African countries.
And the capacities also are very different because some countries are less capable compared to others. If you look at Kenya and South Africa and then you compare it to maybe the DRC or Burundi, countries that are not doing very well economically, you'd find that it's important that we look at it as a whole, because while we're playing it safe and putting in place all these measures, I'm told Rwanda has sinks in the streets for people to wash their hands
At bus terminus.
Not everyone can afford that, so we must, I feel like that's the African Union Center for Disease Control must approach it in a wholesome way so that all the countries are moving in the right direction.
If you look at what Rwanda have done, but it's not even an issue of affordability. Those things are very simple. They're basic.
Hands,
It's just a basic sink, basic water
Does
reservoir.
the country have water?
Yes.
Do they have
Do we
soap?
produce soap? Yes. Do we have sinks in the country? Yes.
Can you make small buckets?
Yes.
As water
So let's not
reservoirs?
allow
Yes.
it to get to a point where it's if an infection spreading, but preventing.
And the
it
bigger
from-
thing about what you see in Rwanda is about awareness creation.
For sure.
Because when people are going to the bus stop and they're told, wash your hands before you get onto the bus because of coronavirus, you're already creating that awareness among people. The importance of washing your hands to avoid the spread of coronavirus.
Yeah.
The kind of thing we were talking about, what's our government doing to inform the people? Do you know what you need to do? For example, by now we should be hearing what we need to know about coronavirus.
So everybody knows, school children know it, they've been taught. If you, the parent, have been left behind, the children will tell you.
Yes.
They will.
You're not doing this.
You're not
Daddy,
doing
Mommy,
this.
we've been told you should do this
Don't
and this and
wash
this.
your hands.
Has anybody heard that?
Nope.
It's quite
No.
concerning. It's quite concerning, though, some of the myths already that are jumping out at us over this thing, and it comes from a lack of information.
It's a lack of information.
And we're at the point whereby even if it's just communication that's put in as a measure, it needs to happen, because then you can imagine, in the unfortunate circumstance when this thing does hit, people are going to be running around with all kinds of concepts in their
There
heads.
will be panic,
Yeah.
there'll be misinformation, and the government will not have owned the information space.
Right.
And this is the time for the government to do that. But does the government know that? I don't know whether the government
Well,
does
we're
know
told
that.
in the standard that the ministry insists that it is ready. So
Yeah,
let's take-
it's
and the
this is
bottom-
a situation.
yeah.
It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 6:15. You are listening and watching KTN News and Spice FM. Well, you're listening to Spice FM and watching KTN News. This is a situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Eric Latif, CT Muga, Nduoko, and Trick Singado. We are taking a look at the newspaper headlines. Let's take a look at the weather, and then the conversation continues. Good morning.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, and will continue through the day with highs of 25 and lows of 16. It's 16 degrees in Nakuru, rain expected through most of the morning at 27 degrees the high and the low of 14 today. In Nyeri, thunderstorms expected later on this morning with highs of 25 and lows of 15. It's 14 degrees in Eldoret, clear skies through the day with highs of 25. In Kisumu at 21 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. It's going to go into rain with highs of 28 and lows of 20. It's 27 degrees in Mombasa, thunderstorms expected with a high of 31 and lows of 20. In Malindi at 27 degrees, rain is expected there later as well with highs of 32 and lows of 27. In Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees, it's mostly cloudy conditions and rain with thunderstorms expected with highs of 31 and lows of 25. It's light rain in Kampala already at 21 degrees, going to be followed through by some thunderstorms later, highs of 26 and lows of 20. Down in Johannesburg, clear skies right now, but will follow with rain at highs of 26 and lows of 15. In Lagos, it's thunderstorms already this morning at 27. Rain going to follow through the day with highs of 34. Taking a look into Europe and London at 8 degrees this morning. Cloudy conditions to follow through with highs of 10 and lows of 6. In Paris at 13 degrees, it's cloudy through the day. Rain coming in with highs of 13 and lows of 5. And wrapping things up in New York at 9 degrees, it's clear skies all through with highs of 13 and lows of 5.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
You're tuned
Nairobi.
into Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room with Strix Ingado, Siti Mugandu Oko, and Eric Latif. And we're broadcasting live on KTN Morning Express. This morning, as usual, we're taking a look at what's making headlines. And this morning, the Nairobi County is making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Take a look at the Standard. On page 12, we're told MCA's probe $2.4 million US trip by Sonko Kin. Now, below that, we have DCI has planned to probe ousted city MCA. Then we have page 12 of the Daily Nation telling us that the false promises failures that have left Nairobi filthy. And there's an accusation being made by the county governor who says he once accused county staff of colluding with cartels to frustrate its efforts. And the pictures on this page speak for themselves. It's quite filthy. Heaps of garbage at Mudhurwa Market in Nairobi on Monday. Traders at the market have asked the county government to sort out the problem or stop collecting levies from them. Several cleanup projects promised by the governor have not come to fruition. So,
you know,
that's
one
our
thing
city.
that when you were reading about that, and I was thinking, the one thing that is standing out for me is the issue of the voters in Nairobi. If you go to other counties, MCAs are people who come from villages, they interact with people. People know who this MCA is.
Yes.
So there's a lot of accountability. In Nairobi, many people don't know their MCA. They just see their MCA during campaign time. It calls on us to start thinking more
How we
carefully
vote.
about how we vote. Well, I'm not a Nairobi voter, but the people of Nairobi who vote in Nairobi need to start thinking carefully about how they vote. You are a Nairobi voter. Do you know your MCA?
Yeah. And they must connect.
Ask many people who are watching
For
and listening
sure.
to us this morning in Nairobi.
have no
Do you know
idea.
your MCA? They don't know their
Why
MCA.
don't you ask me if I know my chief?
Yes. Do you know your chief? Do you know the chief's office? Yeah. It's very important
Yeah.
so that there's some sort of accountability from the point of the voter knowing this is a person whom I elected to go into the county assembly. And the county assembly is the one that's supposed to be checking the excesses and the functions of the executive.
Right.
If you have an MCA who's not gone to work for 2 years, MCAs should be telling us, the county assembly should be telling us, how
Why?
did this happen?
And how?
The, the county assemblies have a clerk, don't they?
Yes.
They have an administration unit.
Yes.
Surely there's some sort of roll call that is conducted when it comes to attendance.
You would think.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
it is. You cannot have such a legal body that does not have a certain elements of accountability instituted
Yeah.
in this proceeding. It's there. So this thing of telling us that 2 years lapsed before they realized this person wasn't there, they should try another.
And there must be a provision because it is said that she was unwell. She had 2 surgeries, lost a baby or something to that tune. There
Yep.
must be provisions for when an MCA
Is out and well, to
yeah, unwell.
report and
So that, to report or to have some sort of replacement while she continues to recuperate. So
Ask
that
the
service
question.
provision, yeah.
Do you really think that if MPs, because MCAs pegged a lot of what they have to the MPs, if MPs have this lovely health insurance and all these other benefits, you think MCAs are not going to fight for the same? The one thing that they would look for is a health cover for them and their families. And they would take it as a given. So some of these things we keep reading
Yes.
cannot possibly be. This is a particular yard that is being spanned for us, and we're being told a story. It might as well enter the realms of fairy tales.
Honestly, it just
Yes.
really is a fairy tale. Somebody
What
is
is
sick.
this?
Somebody is sick for 2 years.
And you don't know.
You don't tell your workmate, your colleagues, the
Right.
person who is in charge of you, and those whom you work with are not asking after you. You mean that suddenly a light was switched on 2 years later, and somebody realized,
oh,
hold on a minute,
The
this
speaker.
person has not been at work. What's going
While
on?
we impeach the governor,
Really?
let's
Yeah.
look at the the
No,
nominations.
there's
and
no
the
way.
governor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work
I think
like that.
it's quite important that people now, when they see these stories, know that when you see this garbage and when you see cases such as this and the governor's family being roped into scandals and he himself being roped into scandals and seeing this MCA, this is basically what you voted for. Not
Yep.
the hype during the rallies, not all the nice things, the dancing, the T-beams and talalas. This trash
it.
And
is
the delightful
basically-
anticipations
Yes.
of bribes which never really comes
Yes,
away.
and-
all those things.
and
This
for
is
those
it.
who
It
did
doesn't
not
matter how
vote.
many positions
Yeah.
you create, deputy prime minister, deputy president, 2 deputy. It does not matter. The local issues that affect you directly, MCA,
Yeah.
It's very important that you know that the MCA is functioning and is working and is the one who's putting the government, the county government in check.
And I have a question though. When I look at page 12 of the Standard, they're talking about the governor's wife and daughter. Why is this picture the only picture that is ever always put when they're talking about the governor's daughter? Is there
it the only one that's
is
always
there
put?
no
Maybe it's the
better
only one
picture
in
of this
public.
lady? I'm sure there's better pictures of her. It's always this particular picture. Why?
Is it flattering enough?
Is it showing her best side?
Well,
Yeah, but I don't
perhaps
know.
you want to take a look and let us know.
On page 12, can't they ever find a decent picture of this young lady?
For opinion's sake, maybe it's
Every
maybe it
single
does.
story that mentions her is tagged with this one.
Is the picture we're talking about. So that's
I
the
don't think
governor.
it's
The top
fair.
photo is the governor and the
Oh.
wife.
Yeah.
And then this
I
is
see.
the
Oh,
daughter.
it's the governor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
okay.
didn't
That's
even
the
know that it
governor.
was
No,
him.
That's
I
the
was
first
actually
lady.
thinking,
That's
who
the
are these
daughter.
two ladies? One in an interesting,
Dress.
sort of like a battle fatigue. Oh, it's a governor.
So,
Yes,
it's
it's
the
a
governor
governor.
in a vest.
Oh no.
Aren't there better representation of this
Well, the
family?
picture sends a message as well. So clearly,
Why are
Yeah,
we
this
trying
is-
to? Because I have seen better pictures of her. Why are we
1,000
always?
1,000 words.
using
I
this
hear
one?
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right? I
Just-
hear
yes,
what you're saying.
absolutely.
Right?
It's a
I mean,
message
it
as
may
such.
also, paint a different picture about this specific young lady.
But is it really fair, first of all?
Given this story,
Yes, I mean, what is the relationship with this young lady and her? She
And
is
the
the
MCA's
father's
pro-
daughter.
yeah,
Yeah,
We
yeah.
understand that. But why is she being brought in?
Is she not the one that traveled?
Kin, it's about that.
yeah, it's
Uh,
about
yes,
them.
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking. So if she traveled,
Two
With
committees
money
will
from
jointly
the-
probe.
2.4 million shillings.
From the county coffers.
Listen to this, City. So two committees will jointly probe allegations that 2.4 million shillings was used to facilitate Sonko's wife Primrose Mbuvi and daughter Saumu Agnes Mbuvi for a trip to New York in 2018. So she's in the story.
eh,
Other headline, City.
Yeah.
sins of the father. The other headline here, now this one is actually of greater concern. Family cries for help to bury body of son held over 18 million. 19.7, 17.9. This is a story that has to do with Gertrude Children's Hospital. The young man in question had leukemia, battled with it for 2 years. The family has paid. The first bill that came knocking at the door was 17.9 million. They paid 4 million of it. And they've continued to pay. But the story that we're talking about now involves them wanting to bury their son
Yeah.
and not being able to because the hospital will not release the body because of what is still owed. Remember, in between, there has been a court case. The point that actually seems to get my goat here is not the obvious one of holding the body. How do bills get to this amount? How?
The cost of healthcare in
Yeah,
Kenya.
okay.
Can you imagine?
You've,
2
you-
years.
you've stated it categorically and have understood. Healthcare in Kenya, I'm asking, must it cost that amount? That's really what I'm asking.
Yeah. It's a pertinent question.
Yes, it's not
2-year
that-
treatment,
Must it cost
18 million shillings.
No, owing.
Owed.
Owed.
They've already paid. of
They've
course.
already
Yeah.
paid.
They've paid quite a substantial
There was
amount.
a 600, there was an 800, there was a 2 million, there was a 4 million. They've paid. And what has been paid is in the millions.
Yep.
Yes.
But they still owe 18 million. What is it about our healthcare? What is it about the treatment of cancer that has to make it this expensive?
A lot more of these stories are jumping out at us from the woodwork now that, just a couple of days ago we saw that, a woman paying the bills of her son.
She spoke to us.
She spoke to
Yes.
us, paying the bills
Same
of her
case,
son who
who had passed
unfortunately
away.
passed away, and she has to pay that for the next almost 60 years,
Yeah.
what she can afford. And even that, she's not able to afford. Even the amount that you would look at and say, all right, it makes sense. She's not able to pay that. She's still trying to make the first payment of 20,000 shillings. And I dare say that there are many, many, many more cases like this, whereby you have to ask the question, why is it so damn expensive? Because this is where we are right now.
Yeah.
It is really, really expensive. And if we're saying that this is what people need, nobody's just going to go sit in the hospital because you have
Yeah.
nothing else to do.
feel like-
People are sick. But at the end of the day, the amounts that we're looking at are quite
Look,
debilitating.
Astronomical.
Your treatment has to be aligned to the illness that you have. This is a hospital, okay? It's not an open market or a supermarket, it's a hospital. So even in supermarkets, you know what you're going to buy. And even if you don't, you're informed because it has a label. And if you talk about cost, you're also informed because there's a cost attached to it. Now, surely the treatment of diseases need to have a cost attached to them so that someone knows this is what you're likely to pay for.
This is what you're getting into.
Yes.
And then you can make a decision at that point. Can I go for this, or
Part
do I need
of
to look for a cheaper
treatment
option?
has to do with someone understanding not just the illness at itself, but to also understand everything else around it. And cost becomes pertinent here.
We saw another report.
Yeah.
Sorry, we saw another report just a couple of days ago, and it was on social media talking about she went to one mainstream private hospital to get particular treatment, and what she had been told that this surgery was going to cost was in the hundreds of thousands. She then decided to take a walk to another lower level facility and asked the same thing, and the difference was staggering. The same procedure. After all is said and done, the amount that she would have paid was unbelievable in the difference. So then you have to ask yourself the question that we understand that healthcare facilities are in it for the business, for the commercial side of it. But is it possible that there can be such glaring disparities between one facility and the next?
Yeah.
In terms of the same procedure being done, you walk out having had the same treatment being administered. Why then is this huge difference?
What's
in
the biggest
cost?
component in a medical bill? Doctor's fees?
It's difficult.
The admission, I'm sure.
It's not even admission. Whatever treatment they're administering will have a cost.
Yeah.
I am questioning the cost of that treatment.
Yep.
And I'm asking, we know what the drug is, and it's very rare that it's just one drug for that disease.
No, you have a cocktail.
Yeah.
And alternatives.
Yeah.
Alternatives.
Yeah.
Some will be more expensive. They'll tell you this one is more potent, this one is more this, but the alternative, just as there are many pharmaceutical companies producing medicines for the same disease in the same way. So the question of the cost, remember this story, this young man even went to India.
Yes, he did.
When he stayed. And they had a problem with the cost, and Willie Bet, our ambassador to India, intervened in that case. He was doing the rounds of hospitals visiting Kenyans. He intervened.
Yeah.
And they say he was stable. There's a lot that is not understood about cancer, but also there is a lot that is understood about cancer. And the one thing that a medical practitioner who claims to be an expert would know is what it is that particular ailment is, and they clearly must know what the cost of treating it is.
I think it presents a unique opportunity for, concerned citizens or whomever then can say something to start to call out some of these things and ask the questions, because then with interrogation then comes people are going to want to be transparent about some of these things.
And as it is,
1:30. Let's go into traffic and then come back and continue this conversation. It's 6:30 right here on Spice FM and KTN News. You are listening and watching to the biggest conversation in the country. This is a Situation Room. My name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga, Nduoko and Trixingado taking a look at the newspaper headlines. We're going to take a short break, take a look at traffic, and then the conversation continues. We'll be looking at the top story this morning that's been covered as the headline of both newspapers, The Nation and The Standard. Good morning.
Classic
take a breath,
soul.
folks. You're going to need many more if you're going to try to approach what is Mombasa Road this morning. A trailer overturned right at General Motors, so this has affected traffic all the way from Syokimau to Nyayo Stadium. No movement whatsoever. Police are on the scene trying to get that out of the way so that people can keep it moving. But if you started on Mombasa Road, you might want to chill a little bit because it's taking you nowhere. The road to nowhere. in that sense, is what Mombasa Road is right now. Waiyaki Way, no incidents right around Red Hill. It's that where the traffic has started. It's slow, but it is moving. The question is being asked, is today Monday? It really isn't. It is Thursday, getting to the end of the week, but Thika Road all the way from Garden City Mall is not moving in any way, shape or form. Right there, Muthaiga also trying to then come out and join the Pangani underpass. It isn't moving. I don't have any good news there at all. Coming off of Jogo Road all the way from Hamza down then to the City Stadium roundabout, that is also bumper to bumper. So right now, I don't have anything else. I just have to say that if you're stepping out, you're stepping into a long snail trail. We'll see what it looks like in a short while. If you do find an alternative, be kind and let us know. Spice FM KE.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
You're listening to the biggest
Spice
conversation
FM, Nairobi.
in the country, and this is Spice FM and KTN News. We are broadcasting live this morning, taking a look at the biggest stories that are making headlines now. This morning, it's an all-out war. That is what the Standard is telling us, and gloves are off as MPs now want Ruto out. And then we're having a page 7 telling us we are ready for snap elections, says MPs in the Ruto camps. Now, this has been a story that some have wished away, some have felt taken sides. We have the factions Tanga Tanga Kieleweke expressing themselves freely, and they are pictured on the top headlines there in their various groupings. And now the ultimate showdown. Battle lines have been drawn as MPs allied to the president and Raila challenge Deputy President to resign for undermining the head of state. Lay out charges against DP pointing to looming impeachment. Ruto's camp accused Raila of plotting his downfall so that he can join governments. And there's a slew of accusations that have been tabled against the deputy president right here, from maize candles, the Western Hotel statement on Aurora and Kimurere Dam, and so much more has been put in a blurb here in the Standard, just telling us what these faction has against the DP. And obviously his allies were fighting back. We have had Moses Kuria saying wakimwaga unga tunamwaga kitoweo. I mean, and that's the government that's
like
supposed
like.
to be, the government
Tit
that's
for tat.
tit for tat, this for that. And that's the government that we are looking to lead us, obviously preoccupied with a few things here. What do you make?
It's claimed that 80% of Kenyans are in support of this. Yesterday, Dr. Ruto's allies dared President Kenyatta to dissolve parliament and call fresh elections in their boldest defense yet of the man they exuded confidence had the support of the majority of Kenyans. This was in response to a bare-knuckled, strong-worded statement by MPs allied to President Kenyatta and Mr. Odinga, who asked the DP to resign, saying his 2022 presidential ambitions had clouded his ability to perform his duties and that he was now in an open war with his boss. According to them, 80% of Kenyans stand behind the DP and are saying, okay, this is what you want. Break it all. Let's build it all from the beginning, from scratch, and we'll show you that the country is behind the vice president.
Do you have time for this type of thing? Why do they just say
I'm
things?
wondering, look, this is a political issue that's just the politicians trying to outdo one another in gaining mileage and showing support for their factions. If you have a case against the deputy president, please just, you are the MPs, come up with the charges, start the impeachment proceedings. If you
handle your business.
Handle your business.
Yeah.
If you want the president to reshuffle the cabinet, just sign a petition, send it to the president. Why must we get involved in this kind of fights all the time or constantly? I think this is one thing that, just looking at it yesterday and wondering, all right, so what's the drama? What exactly is happening here? What are you distracting us from?
And then you have to ask the question, all right, you've done this, and then?
What are you distracting us from?
What's the goal here?
Yeah, where are we going with this? What happens then after this? You've said this, you've made this statement, you've come out in the public and said this is your stance. And then, really,
Next.
because we left left
Next,
hanging.
what are you going to
then
do?
What happens?
So for MPs to impeach the deputy president, first of all, it's got to meet the constitutional threshold of what is it that the charges that you're bringing before the deputy president. It's clearly stipulated in the constitution: a breach of the constitution, gross violation, gross misconduct, or you've committed a serious crime. Right?
Well, they're not at a loss as far as these accusations.
And then
go.
the accusation that they bring is, trying to take back into the history.
They're not
Maize
fresh.
scandal, controversy surrounding Western Hotel, statements on Aurora and Kimored statements, operations of Amaco Insurance, manipulation of planning, budgeting and procurement procedures, and irregular securing of payments for his personal benefit, history of fraud, acquisition of unexplained wealth, and unjust enrichment. His office named in arms deal. So if you want to bring all those things, it's fine. You can bring them to the National Assembly. And then what do you need? You need 113 MPs to endorse the motion before it's tabled in Parliament.
Yeah.
Is it possible for them to gather 113? Yesterday there were how many? 70 or around 70?
Oh,
Yeah.
So they need around 40 more to sign a petition. Maybe they could get that. Then for that to successfully move to the Senate, that's for the National Assembly to approve a motion of impeachment. You need 2/3, 233 MPs. 7 days later, this motion goes to the Senate, and then in the Senate, within 2 days, it goes and gets discussed in the Senate. Senators needed for a special committee to investigate 11. Then 2/3 of senators need to approve that motion of impeachment. 45 out of 47 senators. Is it possible to get 45 out of 47 senators saying, yes, impeach the deputy president?
And are they even serious? Are they going to go through all that, or would they just rather have it play out in the public
They'll
eye,
do the
make
drama.
noise?
That we can see this, correctly put, Eric, this drama playing out in the public arena is a clear indication that they don't really want to go that route.
Because they would have gone.
If you even read the article, we are ready for the snap election, says MPs in rural camp, and then the details. The argument for some of the MPs who spoke seemed to be just focused on Raila Odinga.
Yes.
Yep. The battle here is basically between even those that are accusing the deputy president. It's about the deputy president and Raila Odinga. It is, for me, I look at it and see, all right, so we have a position of deputy president here. The official holder of this position is William Ruto,
Yes.
who's de facto leader of opposition. The leader of opposition is Raila Odinga, who in this case appears to be de facto deputy president. So it's a battle between, all right, so who should
Occupying the seats?
Yes.
Actually, the interesting thing about Raila Odinga's foray into politics, it's not even that he is, he's occupying the position of deputy. He's occupying a position called co-presidency.
Yes.
Because that's what the handshake indicates.
Yeah.
There's no one subordinate to the other in the
It's a
handshake
partnership.
Yes.
Yes. Now, but of importance, the focus seems to have been Raila. And they say, but the president himself has not complained about the deputy. The president has not said this. Now, this is not a discussion I'm going to disregard for this very reason. This is politics. And sometimes some of these things that seem completely ludicrous and completely way off are the very things you perhaps need to pay attention to. These MPs who keep saying this thing, what is it that they know that Jubilee has hatched? Is it possible that Raila Odinga is being played?
Played?
Yes, played. This is politics. Is it possible that the president and his deputy actually have no real issue? That all that we are seeing is just, as it is, drama where the president, the deputy seems to oppose the president.
It's
seems to have
scripted
things-
drama.
Yes.
And
It's
then-
choreographed.
To
That's
throw
the word.
somebody off their game,
would
essentially.
Yes.
Will all these people be in on it,
Yes.
or are they also being played?
No, they're also being
They're also
played.
being
You seem,
And
you seem
therefore-
to assume
Yeah.
that our politicians are very smart people, don't you?
Shots fired.
Big assumption, right?
It is not just big, it's false.
It's many of us being played. So basically,
Yeah.
we are sitting in an amphitheater somewhere and we are watching a play, wasting our time.
Yeah.
End of day, you're told go home.
And the lead
Go and
actors
eat.
left a minute ago.
Of course.
So they're off
lead
doing
actors are
something else,
sitting
and you guys
somewhere
are
eating.
watching the
Busy.
drama.
So even as we look into this drama, or we'll talk about the Ndungu report, our papers, the media, is littered with examples of threats that have been made, littered with insults that have been hurled, and this same drama of Raila and Ruto. They are both headline grabbers, yes. But again, the thing I have exception to, you see, when you do this, it's not that you're not only promoting the names, but essentially you are saying that in terms of political clout, Ruto and Raila are on the same platform. And they're not.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. Mm-mm. No, they're not. If you talk about just the track record of the politicians, they most certainly aren't. In fact, there are very few politicians in this country who have Raila Odinga's track record. Very few. There are those who even argue that his track record surpasses that even of his father in terms of the things he has done, the agendas he has pushed for. But if you keep bringing up a name, what you've done, you may be raising one, watering down the other, or vice versa, or making sure that you keep playing this game. So at one point, there is a greater mention of this one. Meaning, it's like episodes in a soap opera, so that you know who the lead actors are.
Yes.
And every once in a while, you have an Echesa coming in.
Yeah.
Okay? And he features briefly, and this is the episode where you have the saga with the
arms deal.
Yes. And then he's arrested, that one goes down. Then another saga comes up, and another one will keep coming up. And then, just as co-plots within, you'll find that the governor of Nairobi is brought into it. They'll bring in his daughter, his wife. Then they'll bring in the MCA. It is one long drama. And you don't even know when the series will end. Okay?
And it's distracting you.
As
you're sitting here watching this drama,
perfectly because it
a lot is
engulfs
happening
you
outside.
as much. We don't discuss locusts. We don't discuss the damning
Floods.
effects of the floods.
oil that we're still waiting for.
Or the
Oil.
fact that, there's still faulty vessels at the Likoni Channel.
Yes.
There are 5 ferries, but they're still faulty. And even after that tragedy,
Or
the
that,
new
year.
vessels that they said they would
or
bring
that the
in
Kenya
till
ferry
tomorrow.
service does not have a board.
Yes.
After they were sent home.
we're talking about Tula Oil. They've now given the Kenyan government an invoice.
Yeah.
We
They're
owe them
demanding money.
204 billion Kenyan shillings
shillings.
services rendered. We're not talking about these things.
Yeah.
We are not talking about the effect that the SGR going to Naivasha and whatever ramifications there are will have in
On businessmen.
tourism,
coast.
and especially the people who actually use their vehicles to ferry tourists from the airport. If you have a train that goes directly from Nairobi and it's a passenger train and it's comfortable to Naivasha, all I'm saying is that there are other issues that are infinitely more important and which
And all
concern.
those issues are things that are not working.
Yes.
They are
So
not
you
working.
actually-
There are children-
You're
Sure.
being kept entertained
Yeah.
here. Watch this and forget.
And forget.
Instead of
Because,
getting
if
outraged.
we're going to talk about things that we keep forgetting, there are children who did not go to school this term.
Still haven't.
Still have not gone to school this term as a result of flooding, as a result of then having some schools that have been taken over as makeshift homes and camps, and others that where crossings were, completely ruined because of the rain, so they couldn't cross over to go to school. Those are issues that we've been
need
hoodwinked
to be,
away
yeah.
from paying attention to in terms of what is really happening.
We
in
have a
this
looming
country.
famine.
Yes.
We have a looming famine.
No one is talking about it. We're talking about healthcare. There was talk of universal healthcare.
Right.
Note, talk.
Talk of.
Yes. Now we are being told Kenyatta University Referral Hospital has 300 beds. We are ready. Beds, ready. How many test kits do we have in the country? How many people have we tested? How many people have we lined up for testing? What is our messaging on testing?
How many healthcare workers have
we
been
trained?
trained?
Yes.
to deal with
Now,
this?
these are pertinent issues that are important. Whether 1,000 MPs, and their shirts to go out for this picture op, that's a totally different matter. Whether you wore your Sunday dress for
Sunday
this
best,
op,
yes.
that is
We
not
don't care.
important. It's not what people are elected to do.
Do your job for
Do
these
your
other
best.
issues.
Should
that
stop
clearly
clearly
If
Kenyans are
our
indeed,
suffering
time
if
from.
with
indeed
this
you are
drama.
happy for a snap election, why not just resign?
Yes,
Just resign today, and then let's have the snap
we will have a
election.
snap election. Actually, Eric, you
Don't
have
dare
a
the
very
president to
valid point.
would
Do
you-
this, do
If
that.
they
home.
say that they are as popular as they are, resign en
Do
masse.
Yeah, we had
We
one
will have
governor
a
who
snap
Do it.
election en masse.
Yep.
See how that works out.
Yep. This is a Situation Room with Kenya's biggest conversation. Trixie Ngado, CT Muga, Nduwakon. I'm Eric Latif. We're broadcasting on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi. We're in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. Also live streaming on Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Good morning. It's 13 minutes to 7 o'clock.
You are tuned in to Nairobi's #1 soul station, Spice FM.
You are listening to The Biggest Conversation in Kenya, The Situation Room. I am Trix Ingado, joining CT Mugandu Oko and Eric Latif. This is a Morning Express. Now, we are taking a look at what's making headlines, and the biggest story this morning was that show of unity for individual, factions. Now, we have them pictured on the Daily Nation and the Standard. We told some of the MPs and senators allied to the president, Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, at the press conference at Serena yesterday. They demanded the Deputy President William Ruto's resignation, accusing him of misconduct and violation of the oath of office. And we have postulated in this room, in this studio, that this might just be drama. They're just being fed to drama as more important things go under, what is going under the bridge. There are other things that we need to be focusing on. And I think it's curious that a few years ago, Raila Odinga would be the person treating us to press conference after press conference, exposing these failures. Every now and then, he would be the guy. Now he's gone silent. Does the handshake mean that we do not focus on these more important issues that are close to the hearts or close to the lives of
on the bigger
Wananchi?
issues?
Yeah.
Raising those big issues.
Well, this is the thing. Unfortunately, we talk about this all the time, that unfortunately, the political leadership in this country and many countries is not issue-based. So at the end of the day, it's personality politics that are playing through. So if your premise is not founded on issues from the beginning, there is no way that through the practice of this politics or the practice of this leadership, then that you're going to miraculously be interested in issues.
So Raila Odinga was only active when it suited him? Is that
No,
what
which
we're
politician
saying?
is not, I think.
If you listen to the leadership of ODM and the opposition, they say that, well, we are still active. It's only that we've chosen to use different language.
Another
Millie Odhiambo, the MP for
A
Suba
softer
North, was
tone.
here.
She says we're
And
not
she's telling
demanding,
us-
but we're urging.
We're urging.
Yes.
We are still raising the issues. It's just that we know a better way. We are in the room, so
No
we
acrimony.
have better ways of speaking to the government, as opposed to before when we were outside, so we had to scream and throw stones,
Okay.
so we can call out the attention of the government.
She even pegged it to the coalition government and said, when, according to her, some of the most productive things that were done for this country was during the coalition government. Said that's when it dawned on them that you can do the same things differently.
But during the coalition government, they were making a lot of noise.
Yeah.
They were.
This time, if you compare this government to the coalition government, during the coalition government, you had constant press conferences from the opposition side saying,
Yes.
look, this is what the government is trying to do. No, we were not consulted. This is not the
Yes.
way we should run things. If the
But-
president tries to make an appointment
Oh,
of
it was
Attorney
it was
General,
challenged.
Oh,
Yeah.
quickly
Straight.
challenged.
But
there will
if
be a
you
statement from Raila
remember-
Odinga on his way to Ethiopia.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
I was not consulted. I do not know Kioko Kilukumi. He has been nominated by who?
Yes.
No, I don't know.
What are his qualifications?
If you remember, there was also discussion of the structure that existed with the coalition government. Set down, meaning you will do this.
Yes.
So a lot of the noise was a carryover from the noise that had been there prior to the coalition government, but it also had to do with agreed upon structures. All someone was pointing out was, we agreed that when these things happen, we need to
should
talk. But
consult.
clearly, let me give you a case in point. The AG has given himself maximum distance from the management equipment services. He said 63 billion. I did not approve it.
Yeah.
It was done by a private firm. But on the other hand, he's saying this matter of transfer of powers. No, actually, we agree with it. Yes. The case is still
Transfer
in
of powers,
court.
he was present.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that whenever you hear these noises, you need to pause and say, okay, what are the circumstances? Yes. I'm glad the AG has pointed this out, because now we're going to ask, okay, which law firm was given the powers to act on behalf of the AG? Because this is what the AG is supposed. This is
Right.
a government ministry making a ministerial decision for the people of
the
Kenya.
Kenya.
You can't have a private law firm deciding
Doing
that this
that.
is so. Even the legality of it, you can ask for an
The
opinion.
question that emerges for me is, was this matter ever discussed in the cabinet? Because if it was discussed in the cabinet, the Attorney General is a member of the cabinet.
Yes.
Did he say, wait, you guys, what are you
What's
discussing?
happening?
Yeah, did he
What-
put
what-
a
what-
hold
what
on to
contract?
it at that point and
What,
say,
what
where is
contract?
this?
I haven't seen it, Mr. President. Your Excellency, Chairman of the Cabinet, I have not seen
a
that,
problem
please.
here.
I think we need to do this and the other. If it was discussed in the Cabinet, then
Do you
collective
remember-
responsibility.
Remember when we first raised this issue, there was the issue of the so-called contract. And remember,
Yep.
That's where the debate began. And it was clear some people had never even seen. They were seeing it for the first time. They were wondering, and what is this exactly?
What is this? What is this?
What does it say?
Yes. What does it say?
If we cancel the contract, we must pay 80% or is it 75%?
At what point did we agree on this? Yes.
So it was Greek to people at that point.
Oh, yeah.
So then lends credence to the fact that so many things then seem to find their way into the room as per how this country does business. Because
We should
when
impeach this government. Maybe not just talking
not
about
just
it.
the DP,
DP,
everybody
everyone.
needs to go
If
home.
they're telling us that they don't even know what kind of stuff that
Surely.
they are approving, projects that are running, you have signed multi-billion shilling deals, and the
And you
person
don't
who's
know
a
what
legal
the-
advisor,
the-
their legal opinion was not sought.
Actually, you know, Eric,
What are you
I had
telling us?
never thought
Or
of
the,
it that
the
way.
fine print has not been read.
No, but Eric actually has a point. This government should step down.
Yeah, because
No,
across the
if you're
board,
talking stepping down,
Yeah.
these fellows who are talking about
Let's have
stepping
that
down,
snap
If we're talking
election.
about,
yeah,
yes.
Let's
let's
actually
just
have
go
the
back to
snap
an
election.
election
Yes.
again and elect everybody.
Everybody
Afresh.
Yes.
Based
because it
on
seems
how
that
they've
whatever sector you go into,
behaved.
there is something that's questionable. Everybody.
Do you know
There's
every time you
something that's
speak about
questionable.
something,
You want to ask
know,
your
what
question?
I find strange, I think, haven't I said this before? Then
yeah.
I'm realizing, no, it was on a
It was a different area.
different area. Said, oh, okay.
Okay,
Then
yeah.
again, that deja vu feeling. So you've got it. It's everywhere.
failures across board.
Yes,
Across
and,
board.
and why we keep saying the same things because we're dealing with the same thing.
It's the same thing. At
Yes.
the
Same
end of the
leadership.
day, it's the same thing. The rot is not in one area.
Right.
The rot has gone deep and it is far spread. And yes, if you're going to sort it out, what did we say yesterday about the health systems that we saw in institutions of higher learning? Shut the whole thing down, regroup, reset. That's the only way you're going to have any kind of progress.
By
in
the
it.
way, just when you think it is safe to get out of the water, the Ministry of Tourism has a debt that they're supposed to pay some organization that has been doing promotions for them. They've already paid. It was about 240. You know, this is billions. These ones, fortunately, were millions. But in the 248 million sort of like
category,
range.
yes.
And you're asking, okay, we understand. How did you get into a contract for someone to do promotion for us? There was a shortfall. Clearly, they didn't achieve. So, what were you paying them for? I thought such contracts were
What were the deliverables?
performance-based.
Yes.
Yes. We can give this a deposit, but upon achieving this, we pay you this. Upon
Yep.
achieving this.
Yeah, because
And
there are
again,
milestones that you
milestones,
reach.
Yes,
Yeah.
we now have a debt with the Tula oil. How did we
How?
get there?
Come on.
Exactly.
How did we
What
get
did we
I
add?
thought they
What
were serving
arrangement?
us. That's the
Even if they were,
Yeah.
They've dug up our ground.
that they
paid
have.
them.
And they've gone.
Yes. How did we not peg whatever we're paying
slap you
them
with a
to
bill.
producing oil?
produce. I mean,
Suddenly, there's no oil.
and
They've-
there's
they've
money
packed their
that
bags,
we
they've
need
gone.
to be paying.
No, let me be fair.
There is
There-
oil.
There's oil.
There is oil.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, but we're not making money from it.
No, there's oil, but it's still where it is.
There's the,
It's
the
where it
hidden
was
ways.
even
It's
before
why it
they
was
started.
before
Yes.
Tallow came.
They've not
It's
removed
still
it.
down
So
there.
they did the prospecting and
They've
all
dug
that.
up. They've not brought the oil out. They've packed up.
No.
They're going,
Gone.
and then they
I
give you a
think-
bill.
I think we
Here's
need to
my-
be fair.
here's an
They've
invoice.
dug up. The oil refused to come out.
Looking at these headlines, though, and it's going to be the conversation in our next hour with the Media Council of Kenya CEO David Omoyo, who's joining us in the 7 to 8 a.m. hour. Should we be having these other headlines
All out war.
instead of the other kind of headlines? The most important, should we as media be highlighting other stories? What you're saying, we have other bigger fish to fry.
Oh, for sure.
So should we actually be bringing the bigger fish?
And even then, though, I feel like the language we are using, come on, all out war, going for the kill. I mean, come
for the
on.
jugular.
We're waking up to.
You want to
Drama.
read it and play
Come
the
on.
music at the same time. It becomes then theatrics.
You know?
I think we need to look very briefly at the fact that the ruling has gone in the favor of KRA in the Keroche Brewery's case. 9 billion shillings is what Keroche will have to pay.
Which court was this?
All right. So
High Court, Court of Appeal?
the Court of Appeal.
They've already said that they're going to appeal.
Right. So Keroche Breweries has been slapped with a 9.1 billion shilling tax bill after it lost a 5-year legal battle with the taxman. And the Tax Appeals Tribunal ruled in favor of the Kenya Revenue Authority in regards to the treatment of the Vienna Ice brand of vodka. KRA has been allowed to collect the money in tax revenue with regard to products manufactured and marketed by the firm. KRA won 6 appeals filed by Keroche before the Tax Appeals Tribunal in 2015 and 2017. In 3 of them, the contention was the manufacturing of vodka ice. KRA relied on the Compounding of Denatured Spirits Act, Cap 123, and argued that the process undertaken by Keroche was compounding within the meaning of the act. So, It ruled that Keroche was involved in the compounding of spirit, which amounted to manufacturing process within the meaning of the tax laws. So they are being asked to pay this money.
The
And
Nairobi.
from what they have
Keroche
said,
says they're
it's
gonna
likely
appeal.
to ground them
Yeah.
if they have to
They'll
be
still
made to pay
challenge
this.
this.
They're going to challenge this.
And it is.
I don't know how the procedure would be.
I don't know
actually.
which court they would challenge this at,
But
though.
because this was at the tax appeals tribunal, so they want to still appeal.
It
this.
was already an
the
appeal
good thing
in
is that
this
at least there's a
case.
system that's working.
Yes.
Listen to us within a short period of time, and we get a determination, and then we say, so moving
But
forward.
have they stopped working? See,
No.
They're
No,
still-
they're still
no.
working. They're
Yes,
still
so-
Still
manufacturing.
operating.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't see them winning this case.
Unfortunately, it looks like this money.
When you have a broke government,
Not only a
gonna
broke
come
government,
at
not
you,
only a
man.
broke government, the very process by which the government taxes you is a legal process.
Right.
And to try and prove that that legal process was abrogated is difficult.
But then there's also the argument that this kind of vigor going after certain businesses, it does, discourage
Yep.
business owners.
Trix,
Yes.
thank you very much for joining us this morning
Yeah.
on KTN Morning Express. We welcome you to join us again tomorrow. Will you come? Tomorrow is
say
Friday.
no.
We'll see. We'll see.
See,
We will see. Asante sana. Thank you for
Yes.
watching on KTN Prime, KTN Morning Express, KTN News, KTN Morning Express. Stay with us right here on Spice FM. CT Muga, as we go into the top of the hour, what's the proverb of the day? Today's proverb.
Even a beautiful tree has worms.
Oh,
Even a beautiful tree has worms.
Yes.
love.
That's today's proverb. Thank you very much, Trix. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Stick with us. We'll be joined by David Omoyo. He's the CEO of the Media Council of Kenya. We are talking about political headlines in our dailies, in our media and the media coverage of politics in this country. Good morning. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. And of course, then between 8 and 9, we'll also talk about the coronavirus, Kenya's preparedness, looking at the global issues that are affecting coronavirus. And 9 to 10, we'll talk about the Kenyan Stock Exchange. Good morning.
All right, still quite slow on Mombasa Road this morning, waiting for that truck to be completely moved. We're going to see some traffic in and outbound on Mombasa Road today. The cops at Imara Daima, the cops already at Cabanas, trying to move it as smoothly as possible. Taking a look at Thika Road today, coming in through the Allsops underpass at Thika Road, not so bad. The chaos does reign though. Coming through Jogger Road, moving very slowly, bumper to bumper is what we see today. Gong Road also quite slow, coming through from Riaro Junction, Dagoretti Corner and Kingara Road. It's going to take a minute to get into the city centre. Coming out of Westlands at the 87, a little bit of traffic as well. You need to have left by now if you're hoping to get into town at a decent hour. Coming out of the city, using the eastern and southern bypasses will not be too hard. It's a longer route, but at least you will keep it moving. We need to hear what you see. If you find an alternative from the major roads where we see the chock-a-blocks action, do let us know on Spice FM KE, and we can see how we'll get it moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room the only way to
Very
start
good
your
morning to you,
day.
and thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room. This is Spice FM, broadcasting on 94.4 in Nairobi, in Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, Malindi 97.7. Also live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Spice FM KE is our channel. Follow us as well on Instagram, Spice FM KE. On the hot seat this morning, we are joined by David Omoyo. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Media Council of Kenya. Now, this is media's regulator. And we would like to welcome you, David.
Thank you
for coming. I like the thing you are very, very patriotic.
Definitely.
CUC Kenya.
Yes.
Not like Nigerians, they say, see me, see wahala.
I beg.
Karibu, David.
Asante sana.
Now, we're here to discuss what you raised as an issue the other day. You released a statement, you and your chairman, Mr. Maina Muiruri, and the statement was labeled, "Seek the truth and report it. Cause no harm." This was on the 27th of February. You were raising issue on the headlines that you see covered in the papers, the kind of stories that we are covering as a media, and you were saying, look, you guys are focusing a lot on giving us headlines that don't have meat and value.
Yes.
And of course, we saw a kind of good reaction coming out of the Editors Guild, for instance. But let's start with your case. What was it that you were up against?
Let me start by saying that we entirely respect that editorial decisions is a discretion of the editors. That is important. But number two, that we're getting to a level where editorial decisions have to be discussed. And that is one of the functions of a democracy. We are in a country where we have discussed judicial decisions. We are questioning the DPP. We are questioning the president and parliament. And suddenly we are saying that we shouldn't question the editors. We actually at the level where we are questioning religious leaders. You know that we have held a strong opinion that sacred places of worship have been desecrated. I want to dare say that the editorial desk is a sacred place and it has been desecrated. Editorial decisions are being made by people or influenced by people who are not editors. And therefore, what we are seeing out is evidence that this is not credible editorial decision making.
That's a sharp accusation that you've made right there. Yes. Editorial decisions are being made by people who are not editors. Yes. Who's making these decisions?
Now, that is the question. That is the question.
So how do you know it's not the editors that are making the decisions?
We have been in this town long enough. We have been reading these papers every day long enough. Suddenly you notice that this is going down.
Has it been a gradual downward spiral, or is it something that just jumped out at us at once?
It is a gradual downward spiral. The Media Council, all we do is monitor media. I mean, because our role is threefold. We protect the media from government and the people. We protect the people from the media, and we protect government from the media too. So it's really that. So all we do is monitor media, and we release a report every Monday called The Observer. And we question a headline here, an editorial decision there. Of course, with a little wit, a little time, we use a strong language. When it goes overboard, I will issue a warning letter or cease and desist and all that. But there is a consistent drop. The first time, for example, on the 22nd of June is the first time that our Observer report issued a question about headlines. We specifically said we saw a headline around on a TV station. I can mention, I think it was, we had the Standard newspaper and Citizen TV, they had misreported. That's when we issued. So the fact when you saw our statement released on 2 weeks ago was not the first statement. It was a summary of weekly Observer reports that we have come out, and we're saying, look here guys, the quality of editorial output has gone down miserably.
What qualifies as misreporting?
Good question. If you speak that in the headline that something has happened, I will buy the paper. And when you go inside, I expect to find additional information. I want to quote now, for example, last night, the day before yesterday, we released the the Observer for this week. And one of the stories there was about why someone would read something and then conclude that I am fasting off newspapers from a week. And as I said, that our Observer, we purely monitor media. And so even this week I have a critique against. I think the lead story is against the Standard. The second story is against the Nation. I received a few bad messages at midnight yesterday. That story is against the people. And I mean, that's what we do. That's all that. And when you declare something in the headline, the reader expects to go into the newspaper and get additional information and all that.
Headline baiting or clickbaiting.
Yes. So when you do this, we are competing with social media. You know that, selling eyeballs and all that.
Right.
And it is notorious. And I'm saying this that I saw the Editors Guild telling me to prove, and I told the Editors Guild guys, I have 50 reports already published in your custody. What I did was a warning that we are seeing an emerging pattern. How did we see a pattern? Out of our weekly reports, which are published and out there.
David,
yes.
you talk about desecration.
Yes.
Now, when you look at desecration, there's an absence of value. There's an absence of ethics.
Yes.
For most journalists, we all went through that course of media ethics and media law and etc. But so are you saying then that there's a loss of those ethics, or it's not represented?
Yes, I like that you speak about values and ethics because they are not rules and regulations that you can tick off and all that. It's about the foundation of the values that drive you. We speak that media, the principal commitment of the media is to the public. And anything you do must be something that is of interest and for the good of the public. When then we look at stories and start questioning, how did these guys end up with this story? Was it this really in public good and all that? It's like when we question desecration, when we say that we think the sacred places of worship have been desecrated, you realize, oh, that preacher made that statement, yes. He said he could cure this and all that, yes. And all. We have seen this same guy, a cripple, he has been working in 10 miracle events in the past 4 years and all that. You realize that while people say we shouldn't question religious matters and all that, we're being lied to. And the media, we have used our platforms to question those religious leaders. We have used our platforms.
And it's not questioning religion, really. It's questioning the conduct of
the conduct
of
the
the
leaders.
individual, not even the sect or the particular
denomination.
No, it is the individuals.
And that takes me to what we did, because I thought that a few people overreacted. Good to overreact. Sometimes ukiguzo, when you're touched at...
I'm sure you were happy when you said, right, this one, right. It obviously got to its audience.
Yes, I loved that. A few people around me got scared and told them, guys, look here, if you are a regulator and nobody complains about you for a month,
you're not doing your job.
Go to the streets and sell biscuits and chocolate. So my work is to annoy someone.
Unless you're a biscuit and chocolates regulator.
Yes. So I
why are people leaving sweets out of this discussion of sales?
Sweets are dangerous for your health.
So are biscuits.
Well, okay, I did not know you were a health officer. Anyway. So point is that from time to time, a regulator, even a mother at home, you get the children annoyed. Of course, they love you. And so I say, I was trying to respond to this question about why we issued a rather general statement. Every week we mention the paper, the platform, the page, we mention the TV, and all that. I think one of the stories we did yesterday, we did a story about BBC, where we were speaking about foreign correspondents engaging in fake news. And I saw the guy we spoke about, Richard Kagoy, just commented and said, this is an interesting observation and all that. We had lied. I mean, talking about hordes of Kenyans buying masks off shop, masks are flying off shops and all that. And it was BBC. So we said, oh, guy, you may be a foreign correspondent in a serious media house. You have lied in the international arena, because that has not happened. So that's every week. We are very specific. We don't. But eventually we said, now, let's issue a general cautionary guideline. And we warned. What was our warning? That if this trend continues, the public is losing confidence in the media.
I think before we continue, David, it's emerging that first we need to clarify your role.
Yes.
You are the regulator of the media, but it's also self-regulation. That's why the media is, the media practitioners are sitting in your board. Your composition includes the media practitioners. So as regulators, what exactly is your role now in ensuring that the media is doing what it's supposed to do?
Interesting question.
Role and mandate.
Yes, interesting question, but that makes also for a little reflection from Kenyans about how it goes around. We had the Police Service Working Group, which set up the National Police Service Commission, IPOA, and the rest. the final instrument of authority to the National Police is the National Police Service Act. It's not people saying we were part of the guys who set you up and all that. The final instrument that you hand out for the people in the office is the act and the law. So we had the media owners, editors, and authors who were part of the team that set up the Media Council. I was there. I was not there. So when I came in, the instrument I was handed in was the Media Council of Kenya Act of 2013, which among many functions, the Constitution first of all says, set media standards, monitor and ensure compliance. The Act asks the Media Council to prescribe standards for journalists, media practitioners, and all that, and ensure compliance with those standards. Second is that prescribe ethical and disciplinary standards. It's in the Act. I did not write it there. So the fact that you became part of the team that set up the council, eventually we have to go back to the law. If anyone was going to have the council dissolved, it would be based on our inability to deliver based on the law. So the work of prescribing standards and also prescribing ethical and disciplinary standards is in the Act. We did not write it and all that. I mean, I've seen people also, very senior colleagues in the press, saying you should not accredit, it should be free. And then I said, but it is written in the Act you gave me. Accredit.
That's your job.
And all that. So why did you put it in some document? Then immediately you hand me to say, please don't do that. You have that. That's really, so our work is. So what the challenge we have is that we have a dual mandate. Prescribe standards and all that, but then we also to ensure media development. That is why 80% of our budget is on training. And development. And you've been part of this from time to time. The online guys, the newspaper guy, we meet with editors and all that. So because we come down and in a principle of trust, we train, we chat out, we debrief, we do safe houses. We are very, very particular about threats to journalists' safety. That is something that makes us talk even at midnight and all that. Those are things we do all the time. Because we do that, when we step back and say, guys, we think there is a mistake, guys, but we were together for the training. Why do you suddenly taking a high pedestal? They forget that it's a dual mandate. So it's a heart that the media...
so we are willing to turn to you when you are raising issues about the government going against media.
Yes.
But we're not willing to listen to you when you're telling us about what we have not done.
Yes.
What does it tell you about the media then?
That we are Kenyans.
No, I consider that flippant. It's inadequate. But let's go into traffic so that I can actually tell you what I think.
All right. 16 minutes out of 7 o'clock. This is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. We have Siti Muga and Ndu Oko. And joining us on the hot seat this morning is the CEO of the Media Council of Kenya, David Omoyo. Let's take a short break and then the conversation continues.
All right, looking at how things may have changed in Nairobi, mostly cloudy conditions today, right around 18 degrees, and looking at highs of 25 and lows of 16. In Nakuru, partly cloudy conditions, rain expected later, highs of 27 and lows of 14. And in Nyeri at 16 degrees, rain expected there. It's going to be a wet day throughout with highs of 25. In Eldoret, it's clear skies this morning, some clouds coming in later with highs of 25. And in Kisumu, partly cloudy conditions to be followed by rain later, currently standing at 19 degrees and going to a high of 28. In Mombasa, thunderstorms expected later on with highs of 31, mostly cloudy conditions this morning. It's a warm morning in Malindi at 27 degrees. The rain is going to follow later with highs of 33 and lows of 27. Hopping on then into Dar es Salaam at 27 degrees. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 31 and lows of 24. It's rain this morning in Kampala at 20 degrees. Thunderstorms to follow with highs of 26 and lows of 20. And in Johannesburg at 16 degrees. Rain falling later with highs of 26 and lows of 15. And in Lagos, it's thunderstorms later on. Right now at 26 degrees, clear skies. In London this morning, it's clear skies, currently standing at 7 degrees. Rain expected later with highs of 9 and lows of 6. And in Paris, cloudy morning, rain in some parts at 12 degrees, rain to follow with lows of 5. And finally, in New York at 9 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through the day, experiencing lows of 7.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Conversation continues, and before we went into the break, the CEO of the Media Council of Kenya, David Omoyo, was telling us about when the media is really pleasant, about the functions and the role of the Media Council, and when the media does not feel like the Media Council is doing what it's supposed to do. And that's when the Media Council is basically turning its flashlight on the media and the performance of the media. And Siti, you were saying, what does that tell us about the media?
Well, you are right in the sense that, yes, it tells you that the people who hold offices in all these bodies are Kenyans, yes, but it tells you something negative about Kenyans. We call ourselves the fourth estate, or at least we are referred to as the fourth estate, and we seem to believe that we are actually a government unto ourselves, because if you are always calling people out and you actually do not expect to be called out, then it's not something's wrong, something is fundamentally off. Because it then means that in the absence of this regulator, you cannot sort of like do the thing you keep claiming you can
go
do.
rogue.
You cannot self-regulate because you cannot see your faults. And even when it's pointed to you, you seem to take it as an insult. You take it badly. It doesn't make you...
That's a fair assessment.
Yes.
It's a fair assessment.
It's good, agreeing, because they say that freedom without responsibility is the prerogative of the a lot. I always put that. Yeah. And that's really what our media is doing. That
Right.
we are free. And when you tell them, but you made a mistake, you are threatening us now.
Yeah,
So-
come
and
on,
you
what's
just-
your role? I mean, why are you telling us this?
Yes,
We
and
have
you
our
just-
independence.
And you just point and say, guys, we're not sure that you followed the ethics. Then you say, no, these guys are threats and all that. I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Why I get amused when senior guys do that. A few years ago, specifically 2014, there was a tiff between my predecessor and government. And one morning, the office budget was slashed by 50%.
Nice.
If you know what it means. That means you can't pay rent or salary and all that.
Yep.
And he sent a presser to all of you guys. It was not covered. Hypocrites. It was not covered. These guys who say the media is ours, isn't it? When you tell them now, I am threatened, I can't pay salaries or rent or stuff, isn't it? The same guys who want to dedicate pages to discuss what we do and all that did not dedicate 3 lines to say the Media Council budget, without warning, without planning, has been slashed by 50%. If you know what that means, it's the middle of the year and all that. At least the best the media would have done is not even do an editorial, write a statement about it, isn't it? Those are the realities. I have had cases where we have journalists threatened and all that. And I move out and do a statement and all that. Did we get a line or two about it? No. We have had a journalist threatened. I have called the Inspector General. I have done a petition to the ODPP listing 13 cases. In 4 of those, I'm asking him to specifically prosecute policemen. Did I get coverage? No. When I say, guys, you need to check about...
You're a regulator. We don't like regulators.
Well,
Unless
David-
the regulator is, pointing a finger at somebody else.
Right. But David, there's the raging debate, raging whether in mind or raging out in the open, that sensationalism then lends to more papers being bought. Commercial side of things. How do you then reconcile between what people want to hear or what is going to sell more papers and the truth, as it were?
And that I know that sex and scandal sells. You know that. And there's the stuff about clickbait and all that. You must have a commitment. I'll give an example of this media house. You have a family paper and a sex and scandal paper, which people buy and they hide it under the other ones.
family paper.
Under the family paper. So then they read it quietly when you come, they cover it, isn't it? That's a clear distinction. That
Product differentiation.
yes, it's actually ethics that we
really
are.
ethics. Yeah.
Yes, it's ethics that I have a family paper that will discuss matters of public interest, isn't it? Then I have a general paper that will try to make noise around and do all that. So because you have a commitment, you are the only profession, media, which is protected in the Constitution. There's so far anyone can go around the media, isn't it? Because there are clear provisions. The only place in the Constitution where it says that the state shall not interfere with people doing this and that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why haven't we said that the state shall not interfere with anybody providing medical care or food or water? The Constitution did not mention that at all. But it already protected that you will not interfere with people engaging in information sharing. Well, that's why we even have commissions of access to information and the media council and all that stuff. So that is important. So the whole idea is sex and scandal sells, but determine what it, because if then all of us started selling sex and scandal, then where are we protected?
Let's go back to the Observer.
Yes.
So this is a report that you produce every week after observing and monitoring the media for the previous week.
Yes.
And then you come up with a report that says, this is where we find good coverage and this is where we raise issues of concern.
Yes.
What do you do beyond just producing this report? Do you ensure that next week things are going to get better?
Yes, one of the things we do, we are in the principle of, we believe in the principle of self-regulation. The Observer is like an eye. We look at the media, we alert them, and we tell them, look, guys, you did this, look, guys, you did that, and all that, because we believe that by the Observer, guys will get a chance for self-reflection and re-examine how they work. Yeah. Which was actually, even the basis of our statement was, guys, engage, reflect, and re-examine your work, because public trust is going out. Because you can't also be a regulator who moves around threatening, issuing notices and all that. So the Observer is, guys, my work is to watch you, and I think you are going wrong. And
highlight areas.
Yes.
There are those that have accused you, and they say yes. So when you raise this, when you notice that there's something going wrong, what do you do to directly engage with the media? On a one-on-one basis and say, so the Standard Group, this is what we have on you. In the last 3 months, in the last quarter, you published these kind of stories, and we raised issues of ethics, we raised issues of professionalism on this, and the other. And you sat down with the editors, the senior editorial board of Standard Group, to address this. Do you ever do that?
Yes, actually, when matters go out of hand, and when we do letters, if you go to your editorial director's desk and all, you will have either assist and desist, you will have a warning, we do that. But you see, then we don't want to be, again, throwing these letters across when you go. And then eventually what we do is that we have very regular forums for the editors, for journalists, for community people, for guys reporting health, guys reporting business, and all. We do all that because largely our Observer looks at a capacity challenge. And we started from, that innocent trust, that when you see this, it means that media needs to do this and that. And remember, there's also a challenge in the newsroom, the scoop mentality. Yep. Journalists don't stop to even meet. And so the Media Council exercises our mandate to convene. We have a lot of such. We bring editors, many from the Standard Group and other. We take them out for a weekend of reflection and all that. Because when you are in the scoop, there is this, you have already... The people who did this paper, apart from a review that they will do about 9, they are already looking at tomorrow's paper. Excuse me. This guy, you should offer people coffee in the studio, man. So by doing that, we try to tell people, guys, leave your desks for a while and let's reflect with peers and colleagues. And they really appreciate. We always have at least 50 to 60 journalists, at least once in every 2 months, discussing. So we do this a lot.
Now, in the statement of response to your statement, the Kenya Editors Guild says, we are perplexed that beyond generalizing the blanket condemnation, the Media Council does not cite any examples of the breaches of the Code of Conduct complained of. Neither is there any indication as to the identity of any aggrieved party that may have lodged a complaint. We find this irresponsible, negligent, at least since it's the same MCK that houses the entity with a legal mandate to arbitrate in the media. So basically it's saying, so yes, you have issued a statement and generalized everything and saying, oh, we are observing a trend and this is a trend on what we're saying. And you are not saying so-and-so has complained, or we have this kind of cases that have been raised by the public or by the other watchdog, the consumers of media who've gone to the complaints committee and raised the issues against you. So what is it that you're telling us? Why are you just talking, as if for talking's sake?
I want you to reflect about that statement versus what I have said. That every week I have mentioned paper A, page this, radio A, page this, and all that. Every single week. So when then editors say that I did not identify, you wonder. I start from that.
Yep.
That I have done that this year alone. If you assume that this is every week, I have more than 10 reports.
Apart from journalists, are there other people who are in this space of the Media Council of Kenya?
Yes,
Like
and that is one
membership.
Thing, yes, and that's one important thing that we moved into under the new accreditation guidelines. We have spoken to talk show hosts because you're in the media space now.
Yep.
I remember for a very long time, the Media Council of Kenya only accredited journalists. We have spoken about talk show because they operate in this media space. They enjoy freedoms of the media. It's not freedom of the journalists, isn't it? We have spoken about talk show hosts and interviewers and all that. We took them to, when we were studying the guidelines, we took them after the Kibra by-election. We realized that now hate speech and careless talk was not in the news bulletins, but in the talk shows and interviews and all that. And we took them and we spoke about that. We even looking at cartoonists and all that, these illustrators and all that. You've seen a lot of, one of the things that get gagged across this town in many places, including the paper before me now, I will not mention it so that my coffee doesn't go, is the editorial cartoon of the day.
Yeah.
I know it gets gagged, and when it's gagged, we know why it gets thrown and all that. So we realized that so anybody engaging in messaging, you develop content which is then consumed via media.
Yep.
It needs a bit of ethics, not rules and regulations, remember, ethics. And that's why, if it was rules and regulations you pick out while they are there, ethics is about you as a person. You are seated in a position of trust. You must, and when you lose it, people must talk to you. And the challenge we have is that we do not have fora for editors to reflect about these items and all that. That's why when anybody complains, they jump on them like safari ants, Limuru, and this guy is now become a threat. And all. Just as I told you, like when the editors say we have not mentioned any event or any specific thing, and I mention no less than 10 specific news articles with pages every week, and they have, and when they say that there is no evidence of a complaint, we do pick public complaints. We have public complaints a lot, general and particular. And so when we say, guys, reflect about this, and you say, you are threatening our survival, then you say, did these guys read my statement? Actually, let me tell you what I did. Final thing. When I saw that reaction, I am part of a certain international diplomacy thing under the EU. I forwarded my statement, and the editor's reaction to my advisor is the EU advisor on media and all that. His comment was, the editors are not reacting to your statement. Find something else. It's a think tank. It's a think tank on communication and all that. They just said, this is your statement, and this is your mandate, and this is what they said, yes. Because I was told we have threatened and all that. They said, we have not seen there is no threat in your statement.
Yep.
They said, okay, find something else. Unless, is there another statement you haven't sent us? Because the reaction and the statement, the tone of the statement are not related.
But the reaction perhaps indicates something that is actually real to the editors. So if it isn't what is journalistic, then what were they being threatened? What was the threat to their existence?
The statement
Too much truth.
The
Too much
Editors
truth.
Guild also quotes areas and talks about, for example, the issue that you've addressed here of accreditation and others. And it says, looking at this, the kind of trend that we see the Media Council as a regulator taking, you are also now trying to play a different role. You are forgetting that you are part of us, like you're regulating us. This is a self-regulation mechanism. You're behaving like you're the strong arm, like you're the big brother, like your government. And that's the accusation that I read. The general reaction that I read from the Kenya Editors Guild statement is that. We'll be talking to somebody from the Kenya Editors Guild after we come out of this short break, and also, so that we can engage on this particular issue and delve further into what the Media Council was saying in the release of that statement, the issue of headlines not telling us the truth. Good morning. It's 28 minutes past 8 o'clock.
All right, still a bumper
Classic soul,
situation on Mombasa
R&B.
Road. Really, everywhere you look, it seems that it's not going to happen anytime soon. We're just keeping at snail's pace for now, all the way from the SGR, then joining with the JKIA turnoff all the way down the whole of Mombasa Road. An accident along Jogo Road near the Makadara station. Approach with care, Tafadhali. It is not going to be an easy ride there at all. Police already on the scene and trying to get that out of the way, but we don't know how long that will take. The slip road towards Outer Ring on Airport Road has not been opened yet. It was closed yesterday, so that's not an alternative for you to use right now. Traffic jam on Thika Road starts at around Pangani, moving in the opposite direction, so you get a clear picture of the situation. Thika Road today also seems to be shut down, moving very, very slowly this morning. Fog's low in some parts of the city, so people are moving a little bit slower than they normally would. Coming out of Westlands, Gong Road, Langata Road, it's a little bit slow, but it's moving. Right in the middle of traffic hour right now. We'll see what it looks like in a short bit. Spice FMK is how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. We've got to keep people moving. It's Thursday.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
This is the
Nairobi.
Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM. This and every morning, weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. My name is Eric Latif. We have Nduo Ko and CT Muga. And joining us on the hot seat this morning is David Omoyo. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Media Council of Kenya. We are discussing an issue that has been raised by the Media Council on several occasions, but in this particular instance, 2 weeks ago, the Media Council of Kenya decided to release a statement which was titled, "Seek the Truth and Report It. Cause no harm," in which the Media Council was raising concern about a series of headlines that it had noticed while respecting the discretion of editors in making decisions on the publication and broadcast of news. The Media Council hastens to note that the current handling of national issues is first eroding the credibility of the media and resultant public trust. And of course, the Media Council was talking about headlines, and you open that headline, you go into the story, you find it does not correspond to what the headline was selling. Of course, we got a sharp reaction from the Kenya Editors Guild, and the Kenya Editors Guild was asking the Media Council, really, what's your mandate here? I mean, are you overreaching your mandate? Now, let's bring in somebody from the Editors Guild to join in this conversation. This is Macharia Gaido. He's a senior journalist. He is the chairperson of the Kenya Editors Guild Ethics Committee. Good morning, Macharia.
Morning.
How are you?
I am very fine.
Karibu to the Situation Room. Of course, you know the CEO of Media Council, David Omoyo, is on the hot seat.
I know Moyo very well. I know Siti Muga very well.
And
He has been very quiet. I've not heard his voice.
Masharia, now that I've heard you on the show, I'm going to be shell-shocked. I'll say nothing the whole period.
Morning, Masharia. This is Moyo.
Okay, yes, morning, Moyo.
Salama sana. I woke up earlier than you.
I'm very good. I'm wide awake.
Oh, okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Macharia, you've heard what the CEO has been talking, in response to the Kenya Editors Guild statement.
Yes, I've heard.
And what's your reaction to that?
I think our statement stood for itself. And it can be weighed very clearly against the Media Council statement.
Mm-hmm.
What we said, we're not disputing the functions of the Media Council in terms of setting standards and enforcing the code of conduct. What we're saying is that was a general, wild, blanket condemnation with not a single example of a breach of the code of conduct. As simple as that. A blanket condemnation without a single example of where the code of conduct has been breached.
Mm-hmm.
So there you are throwing missiles around, but without saying why. As simple as that.
But David is saying, well, we've been saying why. We've been giving examples. The Observer, which is a report that they release every week.
I read the Observer every week. but and it states instances.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you choose as a regulator to come out with a press statement,
Yep.
you should at the least
Mm-hmm.
say breach A, breach B, breach C, and you also say we are taking action A, B, C, because they have the mandate to take action.
Yep.
But you can only take action on a breach that is known. If the breach is not known, where will you take the action?
Don't you think, Macharia, that this is splitting hairs by the Kenya Editors Guild? The issues that have been raised, and they've been raised before in the Observer. The Observer, when it's covering a story, it says, this is the issue we have with this specific story. For example, the Observer, yesterday's Observer, has issues with several stories. One of them was a story that was covered. Tuju gambled millions. Story was insensitive to the ELCS.
It was specific to that story.
Yes.
Whether we agree with the views of the Observer or not, it was specific to that story. So you can then discuss that story.
Yes.
In this case, there is no story, so there is nothing to discuss.
So what you're saying is basically the media council should have quoted those prior stories
Absolutely.
in that statement.
But I'd like
Then
to
the other
ask...
thing,
Yes.
there's something else we said.
Yes.
We have seen a pattern where the media council is acting as if it is an arm of government. We have raised these issues with the media council in writing
Yep.
and in presentations, and cited instances the media council is overreaching its mandate and forgetting that there is a difference between being a regulator and a controlling arm. The media council is trying to become a controlling arm. And also, I heard more talking about accreditation, that's opposed to accreditation. I suspect you're talking about us, some of us. We have absolutely no problem with accreditation. What we have been saying along is that there is a very clear distinction between accreditation and licensing. And the media council seems not to see that distinction.
Mashara, there's something I'd like to ask here.
Ask.
It's a two-pronged question. One, the guild that you belong to and which you head, do you have a self-regulating mechanism for your members or those who your membership represents?
We subscribe to the self-regulation under the media council.
Okay.
And we insist that our members commit to subscribe to the code of conduct,
Now,
which is our document.
Is
It
there?
is not a media council document.
Yes.
It is a media. It is a document of the media.
Now, do you know of any instances, you yourself, you've been an editor for a very long time. Let me now sort of like, you've been an excellent editor for the longest time. Now,
Thank you very much. I am flattered.
You're welcome.
That was the intention.
That was the purpose of it. Now, do you have instances of the time when you're an editor, when you have had to call out your own, remember, you are in charge of what actually appears in the papers, but when you call out your own and tell them, this isn't what it should be. For instance, that headline you speak of, Tuju gambled. You know, I've read headlines that could be misleading, but entrepreneurship and businesses are not really about gambling. When you say gambling against a backdrop of a country that has had problems with gaming and what have you, essentially one is thinking that the gentleman may have entered casinos with sackfuls of money to gamble it away. Now, if that is the example, if that's the example we are giving, are you saying therefore that if somebody calls out whatever is in the papers and it's in a manner that perhaps doesn't make you happy, do you have a mechanism for ensuring that what is pointed out is actually corrected if it is true?
We have a lot of peer review forums.
Yep.
Where we talk to each other, criticize each other, advise each other. But also, we do not pretend that we're sitting somewhere in a boardroom and taking over the editorial prerogative of the person who makes editorial decision. Sometimes you may find something is disagreeable or insensitive, but that is not necessarily a breach of the code of ethics. It is not necessarily illegal. There has to be a lot of leeway for different points of view to be expressed. Because if we are to now try and monitor every single headline and condemn editors who do this or that, nobody will be doing any work. We will be condemning the Nairobi every day. But we recognize that it has an audience and that it has an editor who has a prerogative to make certain decisions, whether I, as Macharia, disagree with them or not. So we do not spend all our time looking at what every paper is doing, calling them out. They can be called out by their readers, who can decide to buy or not. So you may think that piece on Tutu was insensitive,
but there's somebody who consumed it.
But there's somebody else who thinks it is timely.
You know why I asked the question, Macharia, is because from what I'm informed, it isn't a decision you just you, the editor. You have a group of people who you talk with. It's a group decision. If I'm wrong, you need to correct me here.
In terms of
when a decision is made, say an editorial or a heading, it's a group decision. This is what we're going to go with.
What I think everybody who has worked in a newsroom knows that these decisions are not made by a single person.
As you very well know, I've never worked in a newsroom.
Yes, I'm saying those who have worked in a newsroom. Maybe none of you they have worked. Maybe none of you they have ever worked in a newsroom.
I have.
Okay. Those of you now, those of you there who have worked in a newsroom can advise the others that you have an editorial conference in the morning. What are the stories of the day? What each editor is pitching. Then you send out guys to go and deliver. Then you have another editorial course in the afternoon, and you make decisions. These are the stories we're running, in which order, and so on and so forth, and where they will be placed.
Macharia, does the buying, we want to talk about the commercial aspect of this, and then what will sell papers. Does it come into consideration? I mean, we know editorial conferences take place through the day, at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day. The commercial aspect is very important, is it not? Of what will sell papers.
Why would anybody produce a paper if they don't want to sell it?
Exactly. So now this brings in the argument that sometimes headlines are made for that purpose, that somebody is going to see that particular headline, and what David had talked about previously, that you see a headline hoping to get a particular story, and then you go into the story and find out that it's a little bit different from what the headline was in the first place, but you've got the person because they brought the paper.
If there is that issue, give a specific example. Don't make a blanket condemnation.
For example, I'll give an example. When it was said that the deputy president was kicked out of his home, right? Or that his luggage was then taken over. And then when you read the story, it turned out to be a residence in Mombasa. Do you see? By the time somebody saw that headline, hold on, Macharia. By the time somebody saw that headline
of the deputy in Mombasa,
it was not in the headline.
Is that what informed the media council statement?
I can tell you that a number of people who read the headline were assuming that they were talking about Karen.
Now, what I'm saying is
and kicked out because he is already resident.
He's already resident in Karen. So by the time people saw that headline, that is what they were thinking the story was going to be about.
I don't know if you have done any survey on that, but I'll go with what you are saying.
Yes.
What I'm asking is that headline what informed the media council statement? If so, it should have been put in black and white. And then, where there is
I'm raising it as an example.
David, respond to this.
Yeah, maybe David can respond to that.
I need to, Macharia, good morning and Karibu. Number one, say that because the editors have demanded specifics, I said that the media council issued a general statement. After issuing specific statements weekly pointing to everything, either newspaper headlines, radio or TV, every week. And so we said it's good for a statement. That did not warn. We had said that if this trend continues, we want that if this trend continues, the public... Number two, let me finish so that you respond. Number two, you said about acting as arm of government. Please provide specifics of times when the media council behaved like arms of government. Number three, you say that we are an affront to press freedom. And our question is, who holds the media to account? Because what we saw is an accusation of a general statement countered by a more general statement that people wonder what was the issue. The point is, if you think we acted like an arm of government, when and where, what made you feel that way? That would be a good chance to say. You say provide evidence. We say we provide evidence. If I was told to provide evidence At the next editors' luncheon, I'll come with not less than 50 issues and say, on this date, this TV, I'll have the clips and all that. They're available. And the same editor, when I issue that statement, they know that exists, but they said, provide it again. So we are willing, it is available, and it's there to be provided again. The whole idea is what we're saying is...
That evidence will be very welcome.
Yes.
Together with a plan of action on which sanctions you are going to take against those media houses which are in breach.
Yes, in our statement, if you read it to the end, we said that we want that if this trend continues, people are losing, and we say that the Media Council is available, and we want to find out what we can do as an industry, and we have such forums to help this. If you say we did not warn, because we have warnings, I think even the media house where I am now have a warning, a cease and desist, a cautionary note, and we do that all the time. We have summons, we have withdrawn press cards. The last one we did was last week, and we had 3 guys who went to BBI. Where we were with you the other day, we had 5 guys who did a few things, and they have been summoned and all that. This was a general statement based on more than 50 specific statements already there. So we issued a general statement saying that Media Council said we have noticed a trend. How did we notice a trend? From our weekly reports published out there, we say we have noticed a trend. Then you say, give us specifics. They are available in the reports. So when you say they are welcome...
let me respond.
Yes.
May I?
Yes, please go ahead.
The media observer is not available for general circulation. It only circulates within the media. Within your mailing list. For where is this evidence? We were told that there is a study which has been done, and we were shown a study dated 25th March, 2 days before this statement. It had not been made public. We got it, I think, afterwards. I read that statement, that study, and I wondered: is this study written by Media Council? Is it written by the team that's put together the Media Observer? Is it written by the team that puts together the occasional bulletins, or is it written by Dennis Itumbi? Because the tone, the language, and the references, it concluded that those headlines, and it displayed some headlines, are designed to divide Jubilee.
That was your reading of it.
Yes.
When we hear this,
No. That is what the statement said. These headlines are designed to... That's what their study. The Media Council studied it 25th March. These headlines are written to divide Jubilee.
Right.
And then it went on and gave instances only focusing on one individual, William Ruto. And we wondered, this is crazy. Is the Media Council at the service of the DP or somebody or some political faction within Jubilee?
Yeah.
Now, is that study, and I doubt that study was done by anybody intelligent, because we have read the media before and its statements before. This one looks like an afterthought done to justify the statement. It is not what informed the statement.
Right.
And I find it very instructive that study, that paper is not in the current Media Observer. I wonder why.
David, respond to this.
Because it is a statement. That thing is a scandal in itself. Anybody reading that statement will think these guys have gone mad.
Let's hear a response from David on this.
Yes, I like what Macharia has said, but I like to start from the beginning. One, by saying that we have the Media Observer, it has pointed out specifics na tumeziona, lakini watu hawajui, ni statement yako watu wamejua. So they are not running away from the issue. It's that umetuanika kwa watu.
Yeah.
Number 2 is that it looks like you have been sponsored by the DP. Well, I have to start by clarifying that I met the DP when I was a young journalist in Nakuru, perhaps 7 years ago. We have no contact, neither with his office. I've not his office, and I have no contact. I would not know whether he has made any contact with the Media Council. I have expressed here that we have weekly reports, Observer, which Macharia says he reads. He even reacted to one last night.
Yep.
There were 10 stories, he reacted to one. It's good that he chose that. But that informs me that the spirit is that this is the DP's people doing this and that, which is, because I think when you ask for specifics, and the specifics are there and you've seen them every day, you're not being honest. because you've seen them. Number two, you said that this statement, what do we do? Like we had a statement about Kibra by election and all. After we do our weekly reports, as when you generate saying that now we need to issue this, then you say that generate. We had headlines about the DP, we have headlines about Kibra, and after we had the headlines and report about Kibra, we had a discussion about it. We are doing something now about BBI coverage of the media, headlines and all that, and pro and all that. It's usually, those are some things that differ, because actually that was really part of the basis of the formal statement of MCK is based on weekly monitoring reports. When you end up summarizing, say now, give us summaries of this and all that. See, when you say, for example, why do people feel we have done this? Say that the trend we are seeing is headlines doing this and that. Because on the contrary, the opposite of the truth is that my feeling is that government is buying headlines, not DP. My feeling. So the reaction is that
and you actually raised that, and that's why when somebody who's
when the editor said that it's the DP,
when our audience is listening to this and they hear, so the regulator came and said, well, looking at these headlines, you have to ask yourself, is this an editorial conference? Is the editorial conference being infiltrated by other external forces?
Or is it held hostage by external forces?
Yes, and influencing the headlines. And then when you hear now the media itself reacting and saying, is the Media Council being influenced by external forces? Then you basically have to ask yourself, is there actually an external force?
Let me make an allegation now that is very serious. Yesterday I received a complaint from one of the leading media houses. They sent this complaint across to London. I got a complaint from London that a journalist has been fired because he did not report that Matiang'i has been endorsed. It's big, it's coming, it's going to be very big because they wrote even to the UN and all that. It came to us in a formal complaint that a journalist was fired because he failed to report that someone has endorsed some other guy in a forum in Murang'a, and he has filed a petition and all that. So the point is, I am giving examples of the realities that happen, isn't it?
Let me ask the question.
Yes.
If, let us say, well, let me start by, from what I hear, the Deputy President seems to be associated with a lot of media issues, reporting, headlines, and so forth. Now, if he has a vigorous communication team, let's pause and say, if the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, had a similar team, Raila Odinga had a similar team, and the same sort of communication that we're attributing to the Deputy President could be attributed to the President himself and the leader of the opposition, Raila Odinga, would we then say that the media is held hostage by three major principles of politics, not political parties, of politics in the country, or do we just say that we have a vibrant media?
We would say we have a vibrant media. I have to note that on Friday morning, I was very happy that after our statement on Thursday, on Friday, we had no politics, we had Corona.
This was Corona.
And do you think it was a direct result of the statement, though?
Yes, but they said, I think
it was a reaction to the realities. Come on, David.
No, the campus have a saying that they speak to a rock, you say, I know you have not responded, but I know you have had. By 9 a.m., I had received 4 complaints from Cabinet about the headlines that day on Friday. I have to say this publicly. And it was about the media has done this and all that.
The media is bashing the government.
And evaluated, and we thought that none of the complaints qualified for admission. You see now, we never, and I have, if you come to the office and said we're now evaluating the council, we will show you publics and all that. By 9 a.m. that day, we had a board meeting, and I kept telling the chair, there is fire. And eventually when we start, we said, these are the headlines.
What was the general thrust of their complaint?
That the media had attacked. The media had gone personal and attacked their individual personalities and all that.
Enemies of the people.
Yes, it was they were very strong complaints, actually. And in one instance...
Meaning they were strongly worded.
Yes, and in one instance I was informed that, what is the need of media coverage in events, if this and this, and then I said, no, I think we are taking it too far. One of the important roles of the media, press freedom, is the freedom to annoy. The media must annoy. If you're talking about press freedom, there's no freedom when it pleases you. Press freedom, when you start measuring it, at the moment the media starts annoying you.
Somebody gets uncomfortable.
Yes, because the media, you must afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted.
Exactly.
And I said that if now the media starts annoying people, by the way, I am very happy when media headlines annoy people. When you have a government and media that is, I'll not say cuddling, I say canoodling, so that the headlines are very pleasing to government and all that, I get very scared because I know this person we call Wanjiko has been forgotten.
The watchdog.
So always when the media has highlighted government and government is protesting, it shows you that Watchdog is doing its all. So really, the point is, we do not. I mean, because we have at least, luckily, Macharia has confessed that they saw a hand of Ruto in the statement, and they thought that we had some research done by Itumbi and all that. I am not aware, as I said, that I have not met the DP in person or any of his associates.
You're not aware that anything could be influenced in one way or another?
I am not aware. I am not aware of that, because, as I have said, we mentioned headlines, isn't it? I will provide headlines.
If you are aware, would you tell us?
City, I want us to take a break so we can take a look at
do this before the break. You're going to come back after.
Yes,
we are. In the meantime, please, Omoyo, please avail that March 25th paper.
Yes.
To the rest of the panel.
Yes.
They study it.
Yes.
So that we can then discuss it.
Sasa.
Yeah.
This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 8 o'clock. The conversation continues. In the studio is David Omoyo, is the Chief Executive Officer of the Media Council of Kenya. On the line is Macharia Gaido, veteran journalist. He's the chairman of the Ethics Committee of the Kenya Editors Guild. Keep it right here. Let's take a look at traffic, and then the conversation continues.
University Way joining Wayaki Way is moving very smoothly, getting into the CBD, not what it was before. Kiambu Road then has joined the hoo-ha, and we've seen that now getting onto Thika Road is not what... It's not for the faint-hearted. Gong Road towards town is a bumper to bumper right from City Mortuary, or approaching City Mortuary, getting all the way down, then connecting with Valley Road and Bagathi Way. Limuru Road is clear all the way till Parklands as you head into town. Coming off of Mombasa Road, still slow, but it is moving now. Jogo Road, where we saw the accident right around the Makadara railway station, that has been cleared, but we have the remnants of traffic that was waiting to join that. So it's still going to take a while for us to get out of what we see being the situation. Give us a call on 0719 012 600. Let us know what you see. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter, so that we can make sure we find the alternatives that would be necessary to use.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
We're
The
discussing
only
the
way to
performance of the
start
media,
your...
and especially when it comes to writing and telling stories. In the studio with us this morning is David Omoyo, Chief Executive Officer of the Media Council of Kenya. And on the line is Macharia Gaido, journalist and chairperson of the Ethics Committee of the Kenya Editors Guild. Before we went into the break, Macharia was telling you, share this the 25th of February brief with us so that we can continue discussing it. The accusation basically coming from both sides is there political interference with the performance of newsrooms and with the performance of the Media Council of Kenya? It's coming on both sides.
Actually, they both seem to be, they're both accusing each other of having been bought.
By Ruto.
Yes, one person.
Let me start by saying that... yes, I'm sharing the statement. But just ask for it. It will be here, and I'll share it.
Yes.
Macharia seems to forget one thing, that there is we publicly release reports Mondays, and then we have internal reports for decision. Number one, we have a Kenyan who keeps complaining, media has done that, media has done, isn't it? Then I do a query, guys, I need to get a report on headlines on Ruto. Based on what? Complaints. Macharia has had a tiff with Ruto on Twitter and all that, and we have had the noise. So it is within our purview to say, these counter accusations, you are doing this and all that. Guys, I want you to scan headlines over the past few days and tell me, analyze them. So that is the basis of that report. Like we had accusations about Kibra, and we said, guys, scan media coverage of Kibra and all. So I want to know that when we say they are that targeted, like when we say now that the media has covered coronavirus badly, like for example, could be told that by the Ministry of Health, isn't it? I will immediately query my Kisang, my head of media monitoring. I have this accusation. Do you think it is right or false?
Right.
We have had actually, in very strange instances, fake video and audio of guys who were in a talk show and all that.
Fake news.
Yes, and it is sent to us, CD, under complaint, and the lawyers, and we query, and they say, on that day, this person was not in the studio. And all that. So I want to, Mashere, to say that we start from the point that we received complaints. He knows he has had a thief, and we say, people, look here, there is this complaint about it. Can you verify
So
it?
chronology here is there was complaint about coverage revolving around William Ruto, the deputy president. And then there's a report, and this report somehow coincidentally also seems to look at the coverage, the political coverage, and it points out it points out to the coverage around William Ruto. And the report itself says this coverage seems to be appearing to drive a wedge within Jubilee. And then a statement by the Media Council which cautions against the kind of political reporting that we are receiving. So if you look at that chronology, there's William Ruto as a common denominator.
No, I would like to state, I think I said here that the first time we did a very strong statement against headlines was on the 22nd of June. And surprisingly, it was a headline by the Standard and Citizen TV. And so we had issues about the media and headlines and the Media Council position. We discussed several headlines, not Ruto. We discuss, our reports don't discuss Ruto. The reports are available. You go to the website and all that. They don't. So this time, so when we say headlines, and we have several reports, all our reports, we did not mention Ruto yesterday and all that. If we discuss all them, then people say, oh, how any Ruto and all that. You know how Kenya behaves.
Yeah.
You use the quote that says, the guilty are afraid. We have discussed headlines, and we have more than 50 reports available publicly. And suddenly say, these guys have been told by Ruto they are discussing about us. Yet, as part of contextualization, we have had complaints about something. Say, guys, as we did this, give me reports about, like now we are doing coronavirus and all that. Suddenly you say, you see, these guys have been financed by Ruto and all that. So now what we're missing is that you're missing the point that we are discussing headlines. Like yesterday we spoke about the Sonko, the headline was on Tuju and all that.
Yeah.
We're simply saying headlines either
It's
are
headlines.
without additional information or unnecessary political tension, and then you have no content. People say, hey, Ruto has done this. Mashari has had exchanges with Ruto. So his exchanges with Ruto, as the Media Council here, you have a media consumer and a media
practitioner.
a media house. The Media Council observes, and Mashari says you are talking Ruto. We are not mentioning
You know,
Ruto.
you've mentioned this exchange that Ruto has had with Mashari, I think 4 times now. So it means that the possibility of it existing is real in Twitter or in whatever medium. But if these accusations that we speak of were actually true, how would we know they're true or not? On both sides, because
there's infiltration.
Yes,
and
how
manipulation.
would would be the indicators of the untruth or the truth of it?
From my end, the Media Council of Kenya is a public institution. I would welcome, because I strongly stand by our position, the statement we did. I am perplexed by the reaction. I will ask people to come and say, we want to find out how this statement originated. You will trace from the query about these headlines, what drove it.
There'll be a chain of communication.
Yes, and I will not show just that alone. I will show the several instructions I've given to the media monitoring. Give me a query. It happens all the time.
Now, Masharia.
I will.
Yes.
We are a public institution. Yeah. We can be audited.
That can answer my question.
Yes.
You've had CT's question. How would you respond to that?
First of all, I think we're making progress. We have heard that this objectionable statement was motivated by specific complaints.
Yes.
And it would only have been fair to cite those specific complaints instead of some general blanket accusation against specific media houses, against specific editors, on which sanctions can be taken. That is the role of the Media Council. But when you come up with a general blanket thing without any context, then you leave everybody in the dark.
But Masharia, your guild is being accused of the same thing.
Secondly,
Yes.
we have had Mr. Moyo, so that it is not the first time they have released such a statement. he referred to one in June on the standard. The difference is that on that statement, they cited the specific headline which was objectionable. Here they have not.
He's saying no.
Mr. Ruto has every right to complain. But then we should allow him to write under anonymity. So that the statement, the media council can issue a condemnatory statement but hide the name, hide who is complaining. They should come out openly. There's nothing to hide.
So you from listening to you,
in the light, not in the dark.
Listening to you, Macharia, you take issue with the statement. You take issue with the report released on the 25th of February, and you see an underhand deal that the office of the deputy president, or the political arm of William Ruto, has had an influence in this whole process.
Okay, what I will say is, all of you, I think, by now have had access to that March 25th study, the so-called study. You can read it. You can even read it on air and judge for yourselves that it is focused on issues about one person.
Are they okay?
Are they founded?
Are they founded?
No. First of all, let me put it this way.
When a headlines comes out and a statement by Senate Majority Leader. Let me just give you an example, Macharia. Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen issues a statement in the Senate. And he's raising issue about, the transfer of functions from the Nairobi County government to the national government. He issues a statement in his person as the senator and as a Senate leader. The next day, the headline on The Nation says, Ruto man raises issue.
Yes.
Where is the Ruto connection?
Because Kipchumba Murkomen, in all his public statements, in all his tweets over the last 6 months or more, fights Ruto's corner, nothing else. Secondly, that decision on the Nairobi County was a government decision.
Yes.
The Senate Majority Leader has an office. His job is to fight the government agenda in the Senate.
Yes.
Push the government's agenda in the Senate. To stand with the government when it has a legislation or any other thing. That is why he's called the Senate Majority Leader. He's there as a voice of Jubilee in the Senate. Now, when you have the Jubilee government making a decision, and the Senate Majority Leader fighting that decision elsewhere, then you wonder, who does he speak for?
So when a reader takes that's a newspaper and reads the story, and the story does not give this history or background at all to link the DP to the Senate Majority Leader, is it fair?
Absolutely fair.
To the reader, not to
for the reader,
Kipchumba or Ruto.
Mashari, you've got to understand though that the reader makes the link. When you say Ruto man, all that they do is link whatever has been said to Ruto the man. To Ruto the man specifically.
Explained why Kipchumba is being called a Ruto man. Simply because he is in this case he is not speaking as a Senate Majority Leader, but as a representative of a faction within Jubilee.
Mash,
as a voice of a faction within Jubilee.
Mash, I want us to just clarify some little item. We would agree with you that government or deep state or whatever you call it, which will include our parent ministry, for example, I'm giving this hypothesis, but very likely, they are not on Ruto's side. Is that a basic assumption to make?
Yes, and that is not our
no. Please let me finish. Let me finish. I'm not trying.
First of all, that deep state.
Yes.
Is
yes. No, I'm not talking deep state now.
Which the Ruto faction has likes playing up.
Yes, I'm not talking this. I'm saying, Mash.
Let's leave that.
No, I'm not. I'm simply wanted to clarify that we would agree generally. We are not making that generally government where the ministry where I clearly fall within. Maybe you could mention Interior, our friend and others are let's call them anti-Ruto for their reasons, isn't it? And so therefore we could say that, isn't it? And therefore, if in one line of a statement you say that I am influenced by government who is anti-Ruto, and in another line you say, I am influenced by Ruto, who government is fighting. Are you seeing the confusion we are getting ourselves into? That the media comes on one side, you are
It depends on the highest bidder for the day.
and now you are biased of Ruto.
So let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Are you saying that Ruto is not in government?
No, I am... Mashira, what I want us to do is, I am not saying Ruto is not in government. I'm trying to be specific. You cannot accuse the media council of being influenced by Ruto in paragraph 1 and being influenced by government which is anti-Ruto in paragraph 2.
No.
I mean, because that's basically the basis of what you're saying.
No.
And it's basically...
You're not getting right.
Yes.
The government is not anti-Ruto. There are two factions in government.
Yes.
One of which is headed by Ruto.
Yes.
So that is also government.
So are you saying then, because you, based on your earlier statement, that the pro-Ruto faction of government and Ruto himself are the ones influencing our work? Because based on what you have said.
Is read that statement of that study of March 25th.
Yes.
And you will be, even you, I think you will be persuaded.
Yes.
It shows a certain trend.
Which I have clarified.
A certain hand.
Which I have clarified by saying that...
Maybe you had not read it.
No. How can I fail to read?
You know, the one thing that I'm glad about is that we have provided a forum for two very, very powerful arms of the media to actually air their dirty linen in public. This is really good.
It's nice.
It's excellent.
I would not call it dirty linen.
What would you call it, my friend?
It is differences of opinion.
Differences of dirty linen.
Let me get back to, there was this thing of infiltration.
Yes.
Now you have 4 main daily papers which write politics.
Yes.
Nation, Standard, People, and Star. And then you have Business Daily and others which do different things. Now, all those 4 papers are in competition. There is no way they can be colluding to write specific headlines or to cover certain stories. They're always, in fact, competing to outdo each other. It happens that all of them are staffed by very experienced editors who can independently make decisions on what is newsworthy today, what is the most topical story. There was this paper was complaining about too much coverage of the BBI rallies. Those rallies are not called by the media. They're not called by the Nation or the Standard or the Star or anybody else. They are called by politicians.
Right.
If we don't cover them, we'll be accused of not covering them. Then when we cover them, we're accused of covering them. You have a situation where too many guys out there think they can dictate what every newsroom is doing. Sitting out in boardrooms, thinking they can make better decisions than the editors who are making those decisions. There's this analogy I give. Every time I go to the stadium to watch a football match, or I'm in the local pub watching a football match.
On TV.
Yes. Every spectator out there who is commenting and watching and cheering is better than the goalkeeper, is better than that it is our baby. It is not a government body. It is a media owner's body. It is not, it is not a parliament's baby or body. It is a body of media practitioners and the media industry in general. We played a very big role in writing the laws that establish the Media Council, writing the code of conduct, and every time there are elections or any other things, we participate in updating the editorial coverage guidelines or guidelines on cover terrorism and so on and so forth. We do not object to any advice that the Media Council can give. We welcome them, and we have been welcoming them ever since the Media Council.
And then do you then further act on them, or is it something that we welcome them, we've had a look, and it's put to the side, or is there some, or Masharia, is there some kind of action that is taken as a result then of this advice that is given?
Yes, there should. What I'm saying is we discuss these things. We peer review forums. We advise each other and so on and so forth. We even call out each other. What we are saying is this. Let us be specific. that the Media Council has a very powerful mandate. It can initiate action on its own volition, even without a complaint, against an editor or a media house which is flouting the code of ethics. So instead of a blanket condemnation,
be specific.
what we're saying is simply do this within your mandate.
Specific and prescriptive.
Take action.
Good.
And you cannot take action in the blind. Outline the breaches, identify the perpetrators, and take them to court, so to speak.
Thank you very much, Macharia. Thank you for joining us this morning. And David, now give us your final response to everything that Macharia has said as we conclude.
Important is that what Macharia said is exactly what we do. We summon people. I said, like, for example, last week we withdrew press conferences. We issue warnings. I think you are aware a few times we have had TV shows and all that and issued warnings and all that. We call people to show cause. We organize, we have had hearings. And I think in the last one, when we were withdrawing a few cards, we invited the Editors Guild and KJ to sit in. And it was based on certain people had been taken to court. We wrote the DPP, called for the case to be brought to us, and the process went on. And in this case, as part of the broad, let's say, capacities that we have to do, in this case, we thought that a general advisory is good. And as we do this, we are also warning, we are highlighting and all that, and even, summoning people. So the point is, we cannot also be guys who just summon and threaten and all that. A few times you do a lot of this peer review. I want to note, and I hope that Macharia agrees with me, that peer review mechanisms have collapsed. Deliberately, we have the editors' luncheons monthly. They are no longer peer reviews. What happened? I know there are peer reviews in-house, which are usually why we had less sales than the other media house yesterday, where some people had a story we didn't have. The editors' luncheons are now around. We have a luncheon, which are very important, and someone comes to address us, and then there are questions from the audience. Then we do lunch and go. They are not editors discussing peer review and all that, like we do from the Observer. Like we have this is what the Observer said. Do you think this and that happened? I mean, these various. We are not saying that Macharia is lying. We think that they need to be reframed better. And that's why we try our very best to call editors from their desk to have a peer review mechanism and all that. And also deliberately, the decision not to be specific with all that, we have looked at, when you look at deteriorating standards and ethics, you issue a general guideline and caution that we are moving towards certain things. Please stop, because our statement included reflect and say then we are ready to help. We do not say now we are coming to crack down. We have issued a statement about cracking down, especially community media and all that, about hate speech and all that. But now we say to reflect, and we are ready. Because if this trend continues, it's dangerous. I don't think there can be a better way to say this than that way, that we think this is not good. The public are not happy. We are ready to help. We ask editors to reflect. How best can you put it? How best can you advise, a loved one, as you say, that we are peers here? Guys, we need to
check on this.
In terms of communication, what I hear here is when you issued that statement on the 26th of February, the 27th, it should have been clear that this is a general advisory and not raising specifics and then saying specifics are available. I think the communication is where even the issue the Editors Guild is raising, that when I read this, I'm expecting more detail and I'm not getting the detail. And as an editor, I like detail. And I want to see the details. So it should have been clearer. As we conclude this conversation, there's feedback that we are getting from Macharia. There's feedback that we are getting from you. It's important that both bodies find a way of taking in feedback.
The fourth estate is not complete. It's 3.5. So you need to consider how this particular debate, which is one of the healthiest things that one could actually have, especially the media talking to itself, how it doesn't have to wait for the Situation Room. Though we welcome you back to come at another time so that we can look at the improvements that you have actually made.
And we'd like to...
I have one more thing to say before we wind up.
Yes,
just a second. Let us not create the impression that we are at war. We are not. Just the other day we went, we were together with the Media Council making a joint presentation before the BBI.
Yes.
And we had sat together and worked out, this is our position. We do that all the time.
That's important, Macharia. It's true. We are not at war.
If we take exception with one statement, it does not mean we are opposed to the Media Council, or we are opposed to being regulated, or we are opposed to self-regulation.
It's sibling issues. It's like Tanga and Kieleweke.
It has webbed feet, it quacks, but it isn't a duck, isn't it? Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Macharia. We'll invite you to come and join us in the studio one of these days. Have a good day.
Welcome.
Asante sana. David Omoyo, thank you very much, Chief Executive Officer of the Media Council of Kenya. We welcome you to come and join us again.
Thank you very much.
And asante sana. This is a Situation Room. The conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. 25 minutes after 8. Good morning.
All right, taking a look into Nairobi, mostly cloudy conditions. The sun will peak at some point. Highs of 25 and lows of 16. In Nakuru, it's partly cloudy. Rain is coming in, promised in the afternoon. Highs of 27 and lows of 14. Looking centrally in Nyeri at 18 degrees. Rain showers expected later with highs of 24. And in Eldoret, it's a cool morning at a little bit warm though at 16 degrees. Partly cloudy conditions and highs of 25. In Kisumu at 22 degrees. Rain expected with highs of 28 and lows of 20. It's at 29 degrees in Mombasa. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 31 and lows of 26. And in Malindi at 29 degrees, rain expected, highs of 32 and lows of 20. Looking into Dar es Salaam at 28 degrees, thunderstorms expected later with highs of 31. And in Kampala, cloudy conditions at 21 degrees, thunderstorms carrying through later with highs of 26 and lows of 20. In Johannesburg, currently mostly sunny conditions and some bit of haze where the sun will disappear later. Rain would come in later then with highs of 26 and lows of 15. Wrap things up in Lagos at 26 degrees, and it's going to be an overcast day with rain coming through and highs of 34 and lows of 26.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi,
Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, and worldwide. www.spicefm.co.ke. YouTube, we live stream on YouTube on Spice FM KE is the channel. Spice FM KE, our Facebook page. Spice FM KE, our Twitter handle. And Spice FM KE, our Instagram account as well. So wherever you are, you have access to the Situation Room. Now that Safaricom are no longer using this line, we can use it. Tuko nawe kila wakati. Wherever you are, we are with you. This is a Situation Room. Now, of course, we know that the coronavirus has affected a lot of our global economy, countries' preparedness, and how countries are dealing with this.
Yeah, we've seen that, and just recently we saw the announcements by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, that all flights from Europe have been cancelled for this period until further notice, that they're not taking any flights in, and this comes in from midnight tomorrow, that no flights then from the EU would come into the US. And we've seen quite a number of stock exchanges, from the New York Stock Exchange, the Nairobi Stock Exchange, in Nigeria, in the US, in the UK, and the stock exchanges have been affected. We've seen prices plummet, and this has direct correlation to the coronavirus, and that we've seen also statements coming out of Germany, Angela Merkel talking about the fact that, half or more of the world's population could be affected by this virus if things maintain status quo. And as we've seen, we started off with this being a physiological issue where people were getting sick and people were dying. But now we see how it has affected the world economically. It has affected the world politically, whereby people are losing money. Different sectors have been affected, from tourism to sports to economics to basically the very runnings of certain countries. Politically, where countries have shut down their borders and are having nothing to do with what would be infected countries, where things that would take would be the norm no longer are the practice because of this. And we're talking about an almost complete shutdown in a matter of 2 months since January, and to the point where it has exacerbated so that people are not able to do business in the way in which they were doing it. Stock markets have taken a plunge. Tourism has been affected majorly. World events, sporting events, which would attract quite a number of people, have been shut down. The Hajj, for example, has been regarded as, it's an annual event that it's in doubt now in terms of whether it will happen or not. The Olympics, every 4 years, now being in doubt as to whether that will happen or not in Tokyo after all the preparation has been made. So it's necessary to look at this, I'm saying, from this point, from an eagle eye perspective, and say it's not just about a disease or a virus where one person to the next is being affected, but it is necessary to look at it overall and see really how is this affecting our planet, apart from taking direct measures to say that we are curtailing this thing, but seeing the effect that it will have on countries, on the globe as a whole is necessary. Apart from that, there are certain myths that are being propelled country to country. There are certain things you can do or certain things you can't do or should not do. And I think it is time to dispel those and have proper communication country to country of what we actually are dealing with. Without that, we create a vacuum and we have people running helter-skelter to do things that are actually not going to help the situation. So one, it's necessary to look at this from an eagle eye perspective, and it's necessary to debunk the myths, and absolutely necessary to spread the relevant information about what this virus actually presents.
It's important for us to hold this conversation. That's what we're going to be doing from now until 10 o'clock. In the next hour, we'll be joined by financial analyst George Bodo, who will also take us through what's happening to the stock markets, not just in Kenya, but Africa, in terms of the economic hit, not just also not in Africa, but globally, the hit that this coronavirus is causing globally. First, let's take a look at traffic, and then the conversation continues. 29 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Spice FM, Malindi.
All right, let's see how things have changed, or in some cases remain the same. Still traffic a little bit on Mombasa Road heading towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, moving very slowly, but now we're getting to the point where it is moving all the same. Another accident along Kingara Road is causing traffic, and police are on site, so this affects traffic on the Greater Ngong Road. So getting into the city centre is going to take a longer period of time. Sorry, the traffic on Ngong Road was already crazy, I know, but now with this accident, it has made it just a little bit worse. Things have been cleared up on Jogo Road right around Makadara, so you can get into the city centre much quicker coming out of the city stadium roundabout. Langata Road has been behaving very well this week, past Monday, and she should remain in fine form until the rest of the week. Kiambu Road, no. What should be 4 lanes is now 6, trying to then join Thika Road, so that is going to give us some problems. Imeshikana kila mahali is what we are being told. Limuru Road is clear all the way to Parklands. We know that for now. If you see anything that we should know about to help you clear it up a little bit, do let us know. For now, you're going to have to exercise a high level of patience if you're in the affected areas. Let us know. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. That's where we need you to reach us on.
Spice and everything nice. All right. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM. Nairobi.
Around the world, everybody is closing themselves in. Self-isolation globally. America is saying no more flights from the EU.
Right, this is interesting because Trump made a statement yesterday.
When you say no flights from the EU, basically, unless the direct flights like from JKIA, direct flights from Australia and from Asia, Many people who do connections through Europe.
Forget about it. They've given a day or so. They've given a day until midnight tomorrow. And Trump made a statement on this himself and said, because of what we are seeing, this has been shut down. And of course, major sporting activity coming out of the US, which is the NBA.
Yep.
NBA has been put on hold. This season has come to a stop because one player has been infected with the virus. And so they said, we're not even going to deal with this. And understanding that they're at the height of the season, teams are getting into playoffs, and some of those have already been announced. And they said, you know what? No, for now, this hold. Flights from Europe, hold. It has gotten to fever pitch now around the world where people are saying, you know what, this thing is probably now at the point that more than we can handle. And then yesterday we see that the World Health Organization has said, you know what, now pandemic, global pandemic, this is what we are dealing with. Coming out of Germany, it could get much worse now. It could get to the point whereby half the world's population plus more, 5 billion people could be affected with this thing if it continues in the manner in which it's been affected. But going further than that, we're looking at, somebody catching being infected with this virus, but then looking at other implications that it has. And it's unique in this sense that I don't think we've had yet another thing that has made, market prices plummet the way in which they have because of the fact that economies have been affected as a result of borders being closed, of flights being cancelled, things like this. So understanding the direct effect that one sector would have on another as a result of several people being infected and borders then being closed.
How many people has the virus killed since we heard of it last year?
I'll tell you shortly.
All right. How many people did Ebola kill? How many people did the bubonic plague kill? How many people did the Chinese flu kill? How many people? If you are talking, it's now being called a pandemic, acknowledged officially. Okay, how many people have died from pandemics? I'm going back to my original question. Why is
Total
it
deaths from Ebola.
to date?
No, not from coronavirus to date. Latest update, 8:36 a.m.
Yes.
That is just current, right? 3,816 reported deaths.
Okay.
Confirmed cases, 109,453.
How many thousands?
109,453. Out of those, 3,816
All right.
deaths.
Okay. The issue here is in how many countries in the world. It seems to be everywhere. Now, tell me, how many countries in the world actually have a plan for actually testing its people? Forget waiting to see people collapsing in the street.
Testing. Proactive testing.
Preempting, meaning let us know ahead of time. How many are doing it? The U.S.
On a global scale, like in a countrywide, I think zero. Let's just say it. Call it.
The U.S., by this same president, had a very cavalier attitude towards the virus.
In the first place, yes.
They more or less said it's a Chinese problem. That's what they were saying. Now, all of a sudden, they are heading towards lockdown quickly, swiftly, certainly.
Yeah.
They're there. They're right there.
Now, you tell me, if you know of any country, is there any country that manufactures airplanes more than the U.S.?
No.
Okay. By the same token, do you know of any country that has the sort of influx? One could say China, but China was on lockdown a long time ago, that has flights coming in and out and moving within its boundaries.
If you want to look at JFK, one of the busiest airports in the world, just that alone, and you want to look at the various entry points that they have, Los Angeles, New York, Washington, D.C.,
everywhere,
Dallas, entry points along the different points in the country.
They are talking about flights from the EU. What about other areas that have been affected? The point I'm making here, and the point is simply this. Why is the question of why this particular virus is taking center stage and why there is more media attention to what it could do and not what is being done to simply determine its existence? Forget even providing treatment. Testing. Tell me if you've heard definitive reports of the testing that is being done in this country is this. The testing that is being done in this. And the
All
coverage
countries
you've
are
had,
talking about not having enough testing capacity. Proper
Even the
testing
US.
capacity. Even the US.
themselves.
Now
The
tell
biggest
me-
issue in the US is testing.
the question then is why? If it exists, why is it not with all the might and with all the ability focus to have the test? It means you know what it contains, isn't it? Why is it that this has not been given a priority? Because listen to this, it is spreading It is dangerous. God knows what percentage of this plant will be infected. But there aren't enough kits. It's the same story yesterday, the week before, same story today. So you're
And
talking...
there's no story of ramping up capacity to actually produce these kits.
Do you hear of it? If
You
it's
don't hear
silent,
much
it's
of it.
really very silent,
Yeah.
because if apart from simply containing the virus and the spread, that is understood, it's a good plan. Surely, isn't it better to also know what actually exists within your borders? And the only thing that can provide this is the testing. And this is something that is almost not being talked about completely. So, how on earth are you going to fight containing it if you don't even know of its existence? You don't know where it's at. And only testing can do this for you.
We are at not a good position.
Kenya
Just like
told
Angela
us-
Merkel was
yes.
saying, a huge percentage of the
We have
global
10,000
population.
kits. Now, it needs to be explained. When you have 10,000 kits, how many people can you test? You see, it doesn't mean you can test 10,000 people, 10,000 kits.
Yep.
It may be every kit can test 1,000 people or
Yep.
100 people.
Yes.
This isn't being explained. Now, what seems to be promoted here is now panic. Every news you hear about the coronavirus, just think about it. You think of the economy. Let's be specific. In Europe, you're being told toilet paper has been sold out. I was listening to a recording on BBC where people are fighting in a store when somebody had taken all the toilet paper and somebody said, "No, I just want one roll." It was
And this person
recorded.
is saying, no, this is mine.
This is mine.
Stuff that we see in movies. You know those movies that bring about a doomsday and end of time? This is what we see in movies. It's happening now.
Actually,
Panic buying.
it goes even beyond panic buying. Eh? Think of the scenarios that have been created by movies about the end of the world, which some believe would be caused by war, some would be caused by some virus or the other, some thought it would be caused by ICT going rogue.
Yep.
Okay? But what is certain is that if we're to believe every negative and hyped up prediction, we're going back to the Stone Age.
In our behavior.
Oh, we're going back to the Stone Age
Especially.
where we will not be traveling, we'll be back to barter trade, and all those old clothes you've been giving away, keep them.
Keep them.
You're going to need them because at this rate, nothing will be manufactured further.
Things are not moving.
Precisely. And people who depend purely on what we call modern commerce for their living have a problem that they're going to face because these goods run out of stores. If they're not produced because factories aren't working, what are you going to do?
The good thing about this is, though, well, with the opening up, of course, of communication, there's also the opening up of information, of travel. So travel is spreading this globally, but information is also helping to contain it because there's a lot of information that's being shared globally. So everybody in the world knows that there's a coronavirus.
But there's a lot that's not
everybody
being
in
shared,
the world.
Eric.
Yeah, but at least you have the basics. You know there's coronavirus. From
You
the
know,
first. And then
I
you know-
wish we didn't even know because it's around the coronavirus that all the fake news, all the misinformation now seems to gravitate.
Unfortunately,
But
there's
also
a lot.
all the awareness, so that the countries are preparing themselves. This is what we need to be ready. We need to be aware. Citizens are preparing themselves, knowing I need to watch out. I need to, knowing those things of the basic hygiene. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Someone was saying don't touch your mouth, and then immediately turn the page by licking their finger.
Look, I think it's important that, there's a lot of myths that are swirling around all of this, and it's necessary, it's important to debunk a lot of this because the information that's being spread, some of the things you hear are absolutely ridiculous, even if you have the tiniest shred of information about anything to do with physiology, you would know that it's very dangerous, this kind of information that is being spread. The myths that are going around actually pose quite a danger in terms of then what people are able to do or not do. And you'll find that the people who are
so should we shut
peddling,
down communication?
who are
and
no.
It
I
should
think
only
I think
come
the
from the
no. I think the communication should yes. There should be a source of information, and the kind of information needs to be altered or changed so that we are saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are
This
the
is
things
what
that you need to know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the things that you need to do. Because that is what people are grappling with. Number one, what is this thing actually? And how am I then you're able to at least mitigate until a certain point?
Do
right?
you know why the information about the HIV did the rounds as effectively as it did? Primarily because somebody funded it. COVID-19, World Bank released money. given the way the government in tottering and twittering and sort of like scratching their noses, clearly it isn't funded externally. Because
And in those
yes.
early years of HIV, we did not have such communication
No, we
tools.
didn't. No,
We didn't have
didn't.
social media.
We didn't. It wasn't there.
Imagine if there was social media in those days. All those
Myths
myths
and,
that were
and
being spread.
misconceptions. Whoa. And
Somebody
remember,
would just sit down and create one.
and you know something? Myths are often formed from existing knowledge that somebody has. So you introduce this new thing, and they sort of like just mesh it together with what they have, and they arrive at a conclusion. And if a sufficient body of people have that view, it's the
It
truth.
becomes the truth.
Yes. And now debunking it means you want to roll back this. It is an extremely difficult. Now, in a country like ours, where mistrust levels are at the very, very, very highest, you don't hear not just messaging, but a continuum and a consistent messaging of these things so that you hear it. Can you imagine if you're hearing these things about washing hands and doing this in the morning, at 10, at lunchtime, at 4, at night? You'd get it. You use the radio, you use this. If you used it, okay, they keep telling us they stopped buying flowers and giving people tea. Okay, that money, why don't you take that money and other such monies and take it into messaging and ask for medium that the public will listen to and that they actually tune into, so you will know.
What happens with social media is, whereas there's a lot of fake news that's propagated by, of course, social media, people always look back to the trusted media.
Precisely.
There's what you go back to the trusted
Okay.
media. If the government was
Well,
active in this particular one, if the government was completely
Continuously.
active and continuously telling us this is the information that you need to know,
That's what we'd listen to.
that's what we'd listen to.
Yes.
So the stuff that's going around on social media telling us a certain disinfectant already had predicted that it could cure coronavirus, and therefore this one will help you use this disinfectant and coronavirus is sorted, would not be.
I was in a taxi yesterday, being taken out around by a favorite taximan of mine. And he has visitors who come to the country and use his services. And he was telling me that for this last week, he has actually been at home. I asked him, why? He said, there has been no work. In fact, he told me, when you called me, you don't know how happy I was.
No arrivals at JKI.
There are arrivals, but there's nobody from the people who normally seek his services at
His-
this time of the
his
year.
regular
Talk about it.
clients.
And so I asked him the same question. He told me, oh, I'm doing better than most. At least I have many local clients. He said, many people who are in my business are at home. You can't afford to drive out hoping you'll get business. You want to get it. So I asked him, why do you think this is happening? He said, look, he showed me his phone and said, this is a message I got from one of my clients who's arriving tomorrow. My client the client has actually given him instructions on how he should disinfect his car. The client's coming from the US.
Yes.
Details, and showed him, took pictures of what he should buy to spray his car, the sanitizer, and the guy even told him, I will refund you the money, but make sure you have it. Now, that is someone who understands that, and if you look at it, it was alcohol-based content that stuff that anyone can actually use or buy. But they take it, that's it. Others don't take the chance, so they simply don't bother
They don't
Coming.
Yes. So when you're talking about the economy being affected, this is something you should take very seriously, because it's not only real, but it's going to change certain lives irrevocably. Meaning, after this change, it will be impossible for you to return back to what you had before. Because if you have a car that you're paying a loan for, and you have been at home since last week, it means you've earned nothing. How are you going to pay back for that car? Then you're going to have yards full of cars that have been repossessed.
Oh,
and
yes.
once again, with no one to buy them.
No one to buy because there's no money.
Yes.
This is a big issue, and that's what Nduoko is raising this morning. We need a lot more information sharing on the coronavirus. Even building confidence of the people.
Absolutely.
As long as people know what they need to do, then they have confidence in how they are going to deal with it. At 11 minutes to 9 o'clock, the conversation continues. We are live streaming, remember, on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and our www.spicefm.co.ke.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're
10
listening
minutes
to Spice
9 o'clock.
FM.
This is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're discussing coronavirus and information sharing and how much information is out there, how much of it is fake, how much of it is real, what the countries are doing to, to contain the spread of fake news. Is there any country that's being very proactive?
By the way, this issue of fake news is serious business in the West. Remember, you've had the individuals who own the platforms from what we now call, or what we call social media, have been taken to task. Facebook, Twitter. I got it right. Twitter. Yes, that one. Okay.
Without the TT.
Oh, they've been
Put an RR.
they've been taken to task, and they are setting a process of self-regulating. They've understood that if they do not take certain steps, they themselves will probably have a problem in the not too distant future. Now that's self-censorship really, or self-regulation if I may call it that. But you're talking about the country. This discussion we had with this fine gentleman, Mr. Umoyo, the discussion that perhaps generated the most words was how much Deputy President Ruto is influencing the media. I'm sure if we look at the tweeting or the Twitter forum, is there something like a Twitter forum?
There you go.
Yes, okay. if we actually look at the Twitter forum and the chatter,
Twittersphere.
chatter, good word.
Good,
Chatter.
fantastic word. Actually.
Okay. I was about to say chattering. Then I realized it's called chatter. I'm sure later on we'll find that there's a lot of communication back and forth on the subject. It's because it's important to most people. But here are perceptions that have been taken to be true. And all we're asking was, okay, they are being said, but are they necessarily true? That somebody has said it. Let's take it further. That somebody who's in the media said it. Does it necessarily make it true? And the answer is resoundingly no. At best, it could be an opinion. When you want to make it a fact, you'd better have supporting documentation to actually justify the position you've taken as a fact. It's a fact that the coronavirus exists. No doubt about that. It's a fact that we know where we first heard of it, that was China, but it's also a fact that now there is a downturn, meaning the infections are not really on the increase. Then somebody argue the reporting of it, be that as it may, it's on a decrease from what we are told.
Yeah.
Now, what also seems to be true is on the increase in other parts of the world.
Yes.
Now, at a time when we have a little more knowledge than when we started last year, at a time when WHO has waded in, at a time when WHO has even given you a checklist of what you need to do and what you need to have, tell me if you've read of a statement that the government of Kenya has made which is preambled by, in compliance with the dictates of the WHO regarding the coronavirus, our preparedness at this level has been, Baba. What we have here is remember the word blanket statement and how it did the rounds here between Macharia Gaidho and Omoyo. We are told blanket is we are prepared.
Well, we know when the CS for Health appears before Parliament, he starts by saying these are the protocols. These are the globally accepted protocols. Globally accepted means WHO protocols, and we have this in place. This is what we are doing. What I am thinking is they are doing a lot of it technical. The technical stuff that they are doing is okay, but they're missing the software, which is information to the people.
Absolutely.
But that's why I'm speaking the way I am. I don't know. If you're telling it to the Committee on Health, you're telling it to the Committee on Health.
Yeah.
We are not it. We are the general public.
And
who
we
also
don't sit in that committee.
We don't sit, and it's very unlikely we'll ever sit on that committee. We actually need to be told that the conversation with the Committee on Health was this. Now, those details, we'd say, oh, that's what they discussed. We don't have it. And it isn't that. Remember, the Committee of Health can investigate these things. They do. But again, once they'll tell you that, well, if they've gotten a report, they will look into it. And it usually ends with that.
It ends at that point.
The only time you hear conversations being followed up is when there's a lot of money involved. Like this issue of the MES. You know, this one is not going away soon.
Well, this is very interesting because just now I received a message from the Ministry of Health, okay? And Corona...
The promised messages.
One has come 6 days later, all right?
Okay.
And this is what it says. Coronavirus or COVID-19 is a respiratory disease affecting the world. There are no cases in Kenya. It spreads via a cough or a sneeze.
That's
Okay.
message number one.
That's message number one.
And it ends there.
Yes. It's likely that more messages will come after this. But you can imagine if this comes to people, they're going to run with this. Okay, cough, sneeze, I don't have that. I'm fine.
So they sent messages across to the people saying we are going to be alerting you. So they tell you this, it's a global thing. These are the symptoms. Coughing and sneezing.
Yes.
So call to action.
If you have a cough and a sneeze, then maybe you need to then visit your nearest health facility.
They haven't said that, have they?
This is the thing. We want
If
to
you
make
cough or
inference.
sneeze, you
want
have
to-
coronavirus.
You want to
Do you
make
know the
inference
translation
on
of
that
that?
is that coughing or sneezing, then people
Is
are going to go with
coronavirus.
it. That anybody who coughs or sneezes, they are sick. That's what I'm saying. And that's why I said when you asked that question, the messaging needs to be altered so that nobody will then make an inference after this communication that you give. You don't need to leave room. And I go back to the HIV messaging that we got. The ABCs, everybody knew what it was. 1, 2, 3. And you were clear. A, abstinence. B, I don't know, I can't remember. But C, condom. You didn't need to ask, what do they mean by abstinence? It was clear. You didn't need to ask, what did it mean to wear a condom? You knew what that meant. You didn't leave room for people to then ask questions around the messaging. So what does that mean? What if I have a sniffle and I didn't sneeze and I didn't cough? Is it possible that I have? What if I have achy joints? Could it mean that I have coronavirus? Do you see? You don't want to leave. That's the thing about messaging that's effective.
Yep.
You don't want to leave room for people to then have to ask questions on something then they're not sure.
And then on top of all that, they told you, visit a VCT.
The
Yes.
message is
After
free.
that,
You
visit
could-
a VCT.
Know your
It's
status.
clear.
Know your
In short, know your status.
your status.
Forget all these symptoms. But know your
know your
status.
There's a
status
call
at the
to
end
action.
of the day. Clear.
Yes.
It needs to be clear. So the messaging with this, for something that we're seeing, again, this is something that is not just affecting the physiology of you. Everything else it is affecting. The economy, the country, everything. So the messaging about it needs to be very, very clear. And we keep saying, last week we had this conversation and we are saying, okay, well, there's really not much we can do until we actually have a case or two in the country and then we know. This is something very clear that you can do. People are cutting their lives in half because the messaging that they get or what their understanding is, they can't do certain things,
Yeah.
whereas you can.
You can.
Yeah. So, there's one thing that actually can be done. Unfortunately, what we have is not adequate.
There's a toll-free number to that message, right?
There is
0800.
721 316.
All right. Well, we'll try calling it and we'll try calling it and hear what the message, whether you actually can go through on this line and what it tells you when you go through on this line and understand, does the toll-free service work or is it just a number? If they sent us this message and they said, we'll regularly be telling you, giving you information on coronavirus and you're receiving your first message 6 days later, I haven't received them, still down on the number. Coming to the top of the hour, City. So tell us, remind us, today's proverb.
Even the most beautiful tree has a worm.
Even the most beautiful tree
Has a worm.
has a worm.
Yes.
We'll get to understand this. We'll be joined shortly by an economist, a financial analyst, George Bodo, talk about the performance of the stock exchange. Now, look at what has happened so far. Bamburi Cement falls to a new 17-year low, 50 bob. CIC falls to all-time low of 2 shillings and 30 cents. Centum falls to 7-year low of 23 shillings and 20 cents. KPLC falls to 18-year low of 2 shillings and 10 cents. Kenya Airways falls to an all-time low of 44 cents, consolidation price of 1 shilling and 76 cents. Nation Media Group shares all-time low of 27 shillings. Now, this is what's happening in the markets locally. We are seeing the same is happening to markets across Africa. Nigeria, the same thing. Shares have tanked. In South Africa, the same thing. Shares have tanked. Going globally, New York Stock Exchange the other day had to halt trading for a couple of minutes because of shares tanking. This is an impact of, well, what's happening globally. Oil prices, coronavirus playing a very big role to it. So let's continue having this conversation, especially our preparedness and our reaction to coronavirus. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Hiya. Not so bad right now. Inbound Thika Road, still a little bit of a hold up there, but not as terrible as it was previously. Coming off Mombasa Road, I think we're A-OK now. In certain parts, the eastern bypass, southern bypass, smooth until you get right round onto Langata Road, and that should be just fine. Getting into the city centre then from the City Stadium roundabout, and Jogo Road is much better now. So yes, it's looking good, definitely looking good. Unless something happens now that you need to let us know about, call us or send us a message 0719-012-600 or send us a tweet. Spice FM KE, let us know what you see.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
What are you saying that we should
This
do?
is
what,
the
What do
situ-
you want the governments of the world to do regarding this coronavirus?
There has to be a concerted effort to change the messaging, and because look, everywhere we've turned round and seen that there have been announcements that have made. We saw Trump talking about the ban from flights coming out of the EU, except the United Kingdom. All right, I think we need to make that clear.
Okay.
All flights from Europe except the United Kingdom missed out on that. Yeah. Exactly.
You know,
So
the United
it's
Kingdom-
clear that the
Yes,
United
exactly.
Kingdom is no longer part of the EU.
So where's the exception coming
So there's
in?
no exception
Because
here.
it's still there.
Officially Baba walienda.
Well, may exit.
Officially.
Just in case some Americans are not aware.
Yes.
They're no longer.
They're no longer.
It's for the purpose. It's for the benefit
his
of the
audience.
Americans. It's the people he's telling, right?
It's his audience.
Except the UK. Yes, they are no longer part of the EU, right? So with the statements that we're seeing coming out of major world leaders, what they've shut down, what they've closed down, economic decisions that they're making, it's clearly taking the world by storm, absolutely, and it's a little bit more than a storm in a teacup now. It's serious things that people are looking at here, and because of that, I think global messaging needs to be changed. It needs to be altered to make sure that it's targeted, it's clear, it's precise, and national messaging needs to do the same, because everybody now is on the edge of their seat, saying when is this thing actually going to affect us? But people then need to know what to do to take care of themselves, and it was clear. You need to wash your hands. You need to make sure that you've kept yourself away from people if you feel that you've been infected in any way, shape or form. Drink lots of fluids and things like that. Keep yourself healthy, basically. Allow your immunity by the things that you do, practice, eat, consume, the areas in which you are, to make sure that you're fine. We also have to debunk the mystery, the myth rather, that there's going to be a cure for the virus. There's no virus known to man that has a cure. It is impossible. You can't get a cure for a virus. What you can get is treatment. And I think also coming out of a lot of the experts globally that we could hear from is that they're working on a cure. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. What is going to happen is that there will be treatments that would be developed then to make sure that you're able to then deal with the symptoms and build your immunity up once again. Then your body then is adequately ready to fight this thing. That is what will be done.
What the world of research does for the longest time is to try and develop a vaccine, meaning chanjo. So if you're vaccinated, it means you have actually armed your body with sufficient ammunition to actually protect yourself from actually acquiring it. Those who live in cold climates know for a fact that before the onset of winter, you have flu shots. Why you have flu shots is because it is understood during those times the number of people who are likely to have flu. And by the way, flu here is not a cold.
No, it isn't.
It's a little more than a cold. Okay? And even then, when you have a cold, it really is a virus that is interacting with your body, but usually it's also telling you that your immune system is probably not at its best. Probably because you're tired, you don't sleep enough, you don't eat enough. It's not that you're unwell. It's just that the very support system that your immune system relies on isn't up to scratch. Now,
To get support on what we are saying,
Yes.
let's speak to an expert. He's just called us in, our friend from the Kenya Medical Association, the Secretary General.
thank
Dr.
you.
Simon Kigondu. Good morning, Dr.
Hi, Eric. Where have you been when I was lecturing the Q earlier on?
Okay, no,
Self-quarantine.
our question to you is, where have you been? We've been in the studio waiting for you to call in all this time.
And then you just
but
left
we
us like
thank-
motherless
you left us just
children.
hanging, discussing issues we barely understand.
Surely.
Very good. A very scary situation we are having around the world. And from what we have been saying, it is evident that health is of utmost importance. These focus we are having on buildings, and as Kenya Medical Association, we actually say that health should not be considered as an expenditure item in budget. The reason for that is, one, there has been inadequate investment in human resources for health. And therefore, we have suggested, and secondly, that it is the role of government to actually ensure that public health is functional. What we have suggested in the past is to have a structure that continuously trains health workers and improves health system in the public sector via what we call a health service commission. What is the impact of that? It's overwhelmed. And Italy per se has many doctors, nurses, and paramedical workers. And therefore, in terms of preparedness, or actually a quote I got from Kamarogo. Professor Kamarogo is IFC advisor on Africa on health matters. He says, you prepare for war in times of peace.
Yes.
And therefore, during peace, our government must make investments in human resources for health. One of the
Dr. Are you still
Simon
there?
disappeared.
All right, we'll call him back. He'll come back. But I wanted to interrupt him and tell him and move the conversation. Who know? The rest of us don't know.
No, we don't. It's we're stabbing in the dark, really. You know, the thing that, again, Eric, you brought this up a while back, and I was pontificating on it and realized just how very true it is. With all the trained and able manpower, human resource that we have, and we have a lot of it, to the point where we even export it. Now, with all this, you still have a situation where we are still twiddling our thumbs and figuring out what to do. And yet in our midst, there are people who know exactly what we should do.
They do.
Exactly. We even have some who advise other people, other parts of the world about these things. And they are our people.
Right, and I don't think they need to be waited to be called upon. I think you can actually throw some
Be
suggestions
proactive.
into the hat and be proactive in this case and say, from what we know, coming together, this is information we should put out there. It would cost nothing, I'm sure, for them to then share this.
This
And I
right
think
here
needs
is
to
it.
be-
It's an opportunity.
necessary.
Instead of saying we told you so, we mean this is what we've been talking about now. Come on, act.
Yeah.
Right? Dr. Kigondo, I'm sure you can still hear us. This is a time that this is what we have proposed to go forward. We're willing to participate in this conversation. This is the kind of information that we want to have. Oh, Dr. Kigondo is back. Dr. Terry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I hadn't finished my message.
Yes, something happened.
Oh, yeah. I think the call got cut. So what I said, as Kenya Medical Association, we actually offered our platform to the government, and we have been doing a lot of messaging on behalf of the Director General, and therefore you can't just say them. Yeah. So that's been part of the difficulty in messaging. But we have been incorporated into the committee that is looking into COVID-19 and how to prevent Kenyans from getting it. And we appreciate the government effort.
Do medical associations require government approval before they can make statements?
For example, Simon, if you were going to do a statement coming out of the KMA, simple messaging, would you need government approval to do something like that?
We have been doing messaging. There are some issues that we have information about that you cannot just message without.
It could have other unforeseen.
For instance, maybe my president would kill me. We had actually issued an advisory to our National Governing Council members on travel. But there's usually a ministerial meeting that has to occur for any form of travel advisory.
Yep.
If the Kenya Pediatrics Association made a statement, would they require government approval?
No, we have been making statements, but
What he's saying is there's information that they've been sharing that they can share, but there's also information that is sensitive, and you've got to be aware that this information that we have is sensitive. If we just share this information, then it could cause a lot of alarm, a lot of
More alarm than we already
a
have.
lot of shocks, and if the government is not prepared for it, so basically say this,
When is the
we are
government
raising-
actually ever prepared?
We are raising this issue with the government. Now let the government find better ways of communicating when it's already prepared.
If you move at the pace that the government wants to move,
We're not going anywhere.
What
We're
is actually
going-
going to get done, really?
We're going
honestly speaking?
backwards, Simon. If we want to look at the direction in which we're going to take, which is the direct answer to what CT is saying, Simon, I think in terms of then being proactive, you guys have a unique opportunity as one of the associations
And
that has a
spread alarm
unique
and cause
opportunity.
panic
No.
Yes,
National security.
Actually, Eric, yes, precisely.
National
So that it
security
becomes,
matters.
but it is a national security
This is
issue.
a national security issue.
But that's what Dr. is saying.
No, the doctor is
We've
saying.
got the message,
Doctor is saying.
but the way to deliver it, it could have an impact.
It's supposed to
A
have an
bigger
impact. It's supposed to have an impact. How many people do we want to hear have
A
died
negative impact. Is
before
that
it
what you
becomes
want?
a security issue? What is negative is what is happening. When doctors are involved, they are the people who are trained to understand these things. It is not possible for them to message something wrongly. They treat people. This is what they do every single day.
They're in the job of getting
This is
people
what they
well.
do.
They're in the job of getting people well. At the end of the day, people are trying to now prevent themselves from getting this disease. Basic.
Then they're
Simple.
getting caught up in government
People
bureaucracy.
want to know what they need to do.
Let me just ask you directly, Dr. Simon Kigondu, Kenya Medical Association. Listen, when you've seen the case of that doctor who raised the alarm in Wuhan, China. If such a thing were to happen in this country, and you were the one who started noticing, well, there's something that is looking like a new strain of coronavirus, what would you do? Would you say, like, the Kenya Medical Association can raise the alarm forthright, or must you now report that to the government and let the government be the one that releases the information?
Yes. So what happens? There's the government, then there's the medical profession. What we have noticed over a lot of time is a lot of advice that is sometimes given to government by professional associations is not taken.
Mm-hmm.
And when it is not taken, you see, you cannot seem to be, at loggerheads with the government, because it's the government to actually
It's not at loggerheads.
remedial measures.
As a profession,
If an outbreak occurs,
yep.
that is reported. There is a reporting system that we have noticed. There is a disease that looks like it's cholera, for instance. We have reported cholera on several occasions. In fact, doctors have actually been admitted with cholera following some meetings.
Yes.
Those are reportable illnesses. These are reported and put out. But in terms of what needs to be done, there needs to be activation of government machinery. And probably beyond the reporting, which has already been done by the clinicians,
Yeah.
then maybe we need to streamline how government machinery is activated.
Okay,
That's
Simon, I have
probably
one
our-
question to ask you. And you're talking about activation of government machinery. Timing. How long would something like that take for this activation to happen? Historically, you've had experience with the government. How long would such a thing take?
It all depends on budgets, for instance.
There you go.
If I get cholera outbreak, for instance, I, as a clinician, will make a recommendation. Get 50 cholera beds, get 50 testing kits, get this, and then that is out. So about how long, now that is on the ball is on the other side.
You're
So
actually telling us that the medical profession is part of the problem and not the solution.
Did you hear that, Dr.
How?
Well, if you join the government in its inefficiency, then surely you are a problem, not a solution.
Oh, really?
I would say yes. If we're all holding hands, having a kumbaya moment, there's nobody who's out of the ring when it comes to singing the song. Unfortunately, Simon.
I don't think so. For instance, and I always go back to my pet subject, human resources for health. You see, we have always given recommendations. Get this body to continuously train so that by the time we need workers, we have enough. You see, I have no control of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can defend myself that I have told you that WHO doctor to patient ratio is 1 to 1,000. Currently is 1 to 17,000. But you cannot accuse me of not operationalizing that.
That's your job. Thank you very much, Dr. Simon Kigondu, Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Association.
Keep it up.
Thanks, Dr. Harry.
Asante sana. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're having a conversation around the coronavirus, the effect of coronavirus globally, not just in Kenya, and also the effect of other shocks around the world. One of them, of course, is what we've seen lately, the skyrocketing the dropping of global oil prices, right? We are now joined in the studio by George Bodo. He's a financial analyst, talking about the performance of stocks at the Nairobi Stock Exchange, Securities Exchange, African stock markets, global stock markets. Let's take a short break and then we come and start that conversation with George Bodo. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz,
Mostly
neo
cloudy
soul,
conditions today, with
and
sun peaking At
nostalgic.
some point, highs of 25 through the day. In Nakuru at 19 degrees, it's partly cloudy, and it will be rain in the afternoon with highs of 27. In Nyeri at 19 degrees, rain following later with highs of 24. And in Eldoret at partly cloudy conditions with highs of 25. In Kisumu, it's partly cloudy, rain to follow later with highs of 28 and lows of 20. It's raining in Mombasa this morning, light showers through the most of the day with thunderstorms to be noticed in the evening, highs of 31. And in Malindi, it's mostly cloudy this morning, rain showers will follow through with highs of 32. Take a look into Dar es Salaam, and it's light showers this morning at 29 degrees, followed by thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 31 and lows of 25. It's mostly cloudy in Kampala, thunderstorms after the fact with highs of 26 and lows of 20. And in Johannesburg, it's a hazy morning and will be followed by rain later. Fog is quite low with highs of 25 and lows of 15. And finally in Lagos, it's clear skies this morning at 26 degrees and it'll open up to showers with highs of 34 and lows of 26.
Spice and everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94
Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning, and how are you doing? At 22 minutes past 9 o'clock. Thank you very much for tuning in, and also tuning into our live stream on www.spicefm.co.ke. We live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter at SpiceFMKE. This is the first and only radio station that is audio visual, so you can watch us on radio, right? Thank you very much for joining us.
The global supply chain.
and the travel business. And so, to give you an example, Italy has quarantined the entire country of about 60 million people. What does that mean? People only going out stepping out for essentials, and people not going to work. You have regions in China that are still under quarantine, especially the epicenter, the so-called Wuhan. The challenge is some of these regions are big manufacturing centers for certain items, pharmaceuticals, FMCG. Now, what happens if if an entire region is quarantined? Factories are not open, right? People are not going to work. You can't move goods from point A to point B. So essentially, that means that a lot of countries and markets are dependent on these goods and not receiving them. That's one. Two also is the airline and travel industry. For instance, I'll give you an example. The US president has now essentially suspended flights into US from Europe. What happens to airlines that fly from Europe to the United States? That means those planes are grounded. What about the staff that service those planes? They're also grounded, so people are not going to work. And if this goes prolonged on, you have people who are going to be essentially laid off. So you have a situation where factories are not producing, people are being laid off because of quarantine and this extreme
business
quarantine.
deals are not being made.
Business deals are not being made. So this is having an impact. And to add on to this, you have the global oil prices, which dropped significantly earlier this week, and it's still very low, actually.
But that's a good thing, isn't it?
It's a good thing, and it's a bad thing. For a country like Kenya, it's a good thing because we are a net importer of oil, finished products, which means that if it drops like that, then the pump prices will actually we'll have a relief at the pump. But the challenge is that, well, we can benefit from a low oil price. The challenge is that we are also, at the same time, we also import a good portion of what we use. So clothes. And the other day I was reading that supermarkets are saying they will adjust prices of certain commodities because the Chinese ships have not docked at the Mombasa. So you, on the one hand, you have a relief of the pump, but at the same time, if this prolongs, then you have a situation where consumer prices of certain goods will actually go up.
But looking at our stock exchange,
Yeah.
looking at the kind of drops that we saw yesterday, Bamburi dropping to an all-time low, 17-year low of 50.
Yeah.
CIC falling to an all-time low of 2 shillings and 30. Centum falling to a 7-year low of 23. Kenya Power falling to an 18-year low. These companies like Bamburi is not dependent on China, is it?
They are, but there's a mix of issues. There are company-specific issues. I'll give you an example. A company like Bamburi has had challenges with the cash flow. I mean, business are not doing well. And it's a reflection of the cement sector. I don't know why. A number of cement companies have not been doing well. But now that you add that on top of the uncertainties that are being generated by, I think there's a perceptive aspect of that share price drop, but also there are also company-specific issues. So if you go, I've mentioned Bamburi, cash flow issues, CIC, quality of business issues,
Kenya Power,
it's all these problems are well documented. And
City doesn't seem to remember what those documented problems would be. With a monopoly.
With the monopoly and ridiculously high prices of power in this country,
even
buffered by the industrial sector.
Even when our esteemed guest talked about some of these things, why I kept moving my head, I was thinking oil prices, even if the world oil prices dip to the point where they're almost giving it away for free, I doubt very much if it will significantly affect our pump prices if our contracting with the people who supply us oil was not favored, was not written in our interest.
Yeah, and I agree with you, actually. We have this wonderful formula that we use every month to calculate pump prices. Right? It doesn't seem to... I mean, we all lived before the formula came. And we lived
some of us
after.
Even lived before inflation was invented. Yes.
I think that my view
before
is
the shilling.
Yes.
I think my view is that at the current level where global oil prices are, we actually better off reverting to market-based prices as opposed to someone sitting every month.
I will sit here
With
and
their own
argue
calculations.
against that any day. Any day. And I'll just put it out this way. Yes, we were there before the formula and after the formula. Before the formula, the market would. It's a cartel. It's a few companies. I mean, we only had a few,
and the cartels didn't go anywhere.
and they didn't go. But those companies, what they would do is, the price goes up, global oil prices drop, the price does not come down. They decide to drop, the price just to make you feel better by a couple of cents, and then it stays like that. The next time there's a shock in the global market, the following day, knowing that they bought this commodity months before, but the following day they put it up. Formula for me, I know this month. This is the price of petrol. I know I can budget, as opposed to before. But
even this calculation that we're speaking of, Eric, if we're to look at it, what I wonder is that well, that's what we are told. But in all honesty, we buy oil from certain quarters. Is that not so?
It is.
And we come to an understanding, don't we?
Yeah.
And it isn't on a daily basis or on a monthly basis. No. It's an agreement. We're going to be buying oil from you from this period of time, and we arrive at an understand that this is what we're going to buy it at, isn't it? Now, where his argument comes into play is when you then have a history of oil prices continuously dropping, then market forces become a better ally than that particular arrangement.
That's exactly what I mean, because we have a formula that nobody. Well, what Eric's saying is that he enjoys certain level of certainty for about 30 days. That he knows that for the next 30 days, fuel
prices are not going to
fluctuate. The certainty that we have with what Eric is saying is that we're going to be conned and robbed.
No.
Because that's the certainty. You don't even need to doubt it.
The cartel has been reined in. That's my biggest comfort.
The
cartel is not going to decide, market forces, you know what, we are going to decide how much you're going to buy. No.
There's a formula that is followed.
Who decided on the formula?
This cartel...
That's what I'm so there's a formula that's followed, and that's where your comfortability comes from.
Yes.
That we are going to be following a formula.
Whether
we are being cheated is not the issue.
The import of this formula, by the way, is very simple. It is capping the interest that goes at the pump. This is how much you bought the oil for, and this is how much the maximum that you can make as a profit. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's capping the profit.
I think the broad argument is, do price controls work? There's a time in this country we used to fix the price of bread.
I would take it even further. Who in a command economy, it's something that can work easily. But the moment you have this sort of economy, which we say is one thing and yet it's another, the very people who are supposed to make those decisions are the cartel. This is where the problem arises. Because you'll find people who are regulators, they are also players in the industry. So how safe are you?
But the thing is...
And the ones who determined this formula.
How do we get oil into the country?
It's important.
Open tender system. One company is given the tender to import for the market, and they come in, and how do they win the tender? This is how much we are going to buy for, and this is how much we're going to sell to you for. So we already know this. Everybody who is selling oil, petroleum in the pump across the country bought it from George, and this is how much they've bought from George. And so we are saying, because this is how much you've bought from George, you shall make 2 shillings maximum profit on that.
Market forces would actually allow for me to buy oil if I want. And this one, in theory, actually does. But because of our great push, and this is me being at my very politest, our gravitation towards profit renders useless all these lovely things that we're talking about. Yeah. Because somewhere along the line, somebody is going to look at the bottom line of how much money they're going to make. And all these
and either reject it or accept it.
It'll just be circumvented. Yeah. And then we'll be exactly back. You tell me. Oil prices have dropped by what percent in this country? And what are we paying for petrol at the pump? Does it even reflect the slightest of what's happening?
It doesn't reflect the fact that this is the thing. When we look at oil prices dropping around the world, it doesn't then reflect when you go to the pump. That's the question that most people have.
It does. Not to that percentage. The problem for me where I see it is the government.
Nobody's going to resonate with the drop that
the
you
big
see because
components
it's so
in that formula,
insignificant
the variables in that formula
in your pocket.
are taxes.
It was on my next point, actually. We need to have a conversion on tax. Actually, about half of that price is tax.
It's tax.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's a variable. The government decides, you know what, it's a percentage of this, the forex, the forex exchange. Yeah. That keeps varying. Yeah. So those things keep impacting us. If we removed all those, no, I'm going to buy oil from CT Muga for my vehicle. This much. He can only make a maximum of 2 bob profit from me. That's good enough. And that's why I was saying, well, I know the argument. I said we can have a long argument,
and
a long discussion on this to no end. But yes, we are talking about what's impacting some of these prices at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. In the situation room this morning, in this hour, is George Bodo. He's the CEO of Call Street Research and Analytics. He is a market financial analyst. He's here to talk to us about the global impact of coronavirus and what it's doing globally, what we are seeing globally to the stock exchange, the stock markets. Well, the conversation continues. 27 minutes past 9 o'clock, 27 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic and then we resume.
Classic soul, R&B,
Looking much better wherever
smooth
you look. Coming
jazz,
from Gong Road,
neo
Nakuru Road,
soul.
Mombasa Road, thicker road. People getting in and out of the CBD with not much of a hassle. A little bit of a hold-up right around the Uhuru Highway, all the way from the Nyayo Stadium round down to the University of Nairobi roundabout. But that will open up in a bit. Out of traffic hour completely now, and we don't see anything causing any problems. Off to a good start this Thursday morning, right about 9:30. No traffic whatsoever. Unless there's something I'm not seeing, which of course then you will let me know when you send a shout on Twitter, SpiceFMKE.
The 80s have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1980s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Quite a number of stocks around the world, not just looking in Nairobi, looking in South Africa, Nigeria, the UK, the US, across it. I mean, what would be the forecast for the future after Corona? Are we seeing people are a bit worried now then in terms of what would happen to their investments? Is it cause for concern, or are we saying that after Corona we should be fine?
Yeah, the challenge is it's difficult to do a projection how this is going to land or last. I mean, but for now, I think investors are taking in hope from the fact that government will intervene, and we've seen governments in the advanced world already intervening. Central banks are essentially easing monetary policy. Essentially what that means is printing more money.
Yes.
So a bit to help up stock prices. The whole premise of an easing or printing more money is to help banks accelerate the pace at which they keep giving credit.
Yes.
And in a bid to help businesses that are likely to be affected by the impact. I mean, yesterday I was watching the United Kingdom budget, and the finance minister over there, they unveiled some measures to help small businesses, especially that are affected by the impact of the coronavirus. Some monetary measures. I think there's some financial packages that they'll benefit from the government. And even from the banks, they can draw down on some of those financial packages just to give them a relief. And I think even in the US, they're giving some tax relief to people who have been affected by the virus. All this they're doing to help the demand and supply side of the equation to keep up. Not to fall apart, because governments are very worried if things fall apart, then they'll be in for problems.
That's it.
Does our exchequer have the same understanding of tax relief as the UK government? Because clearly tax relief in this country means being taxed more and more and more and more and more.
I think even in Kenya today, the economy is so tight that they will do with some form of tax relief.
We've been ready for those tax relief for the longest possible time.
Yeah,
because
even before the coronavirus landed, basically what George you're saying, and we agree with you, we do with a bit of tax relief. Basically, the National Treasury looking at the state of economy, looking at businesses, looking at the performance of businesses, and seeing what do we need to do to ensure that these companies don't go out of business. Because many are going out of business. So what is it that
many
happens?
have gone, and others continue to go out of business.
And the challenge is when businesses go out of when companies go out of business, is they lay off people.
Yes,
right. And this affects household income. It has a ripple effect. When you lay off people, the government is unable to collect personal income tax. It's cyclic.
How they don't see this simple thing, I don't understand.
Yeah, I think if you look at where we are today, I think the government also, part of our problem is today is we are fiscally indisciplined as a country. Fiscal indiscipline. It's a polite way of saying
our money is managed.
No, City will say it for you. Just what do you want to say? City can do it very nicely.
It's a big nice about.
Let me ask the question, George. Is there any time in our history in the recent past that you can tell us the government tried to sort out some of these clear issues by printing more money? When? During whose government?
Yeah, it happened in...
By the way, I need to forewarn you, it's a preamble. What I really want to ask is not that. But carry on.
We 1992?
Yes.
During the 1992 election, the YK, the famous YK, there was massive... the economy
but
took
then I thought
so long.
we actually introduced an entire new printing press specifically for that purpose. I'm talking about the economic...
to relieve the situation of the economy.
Yes.
Okay, so...
That was politically motivated. Okay. It wasn't necessarily meant for the economy. I meant for the economy.
Because of what we see, like what we talked about just now, George, whereby, some countries like the UK injecting more money into the economy to relieve the situation of the tax burden.
Making it possible for money to be in the hands of more people. So that economic activities can continue.
I think, to be fair, that the current monetary policy, what is monetary policy? Monetary policy is all those actions that are aimed at helping banks to create more credit to the economy, right? So when you look at, and policies are done, the Central Bank of Kenya is the custodian of all these policies. Yes. So if you look at the current monetary policy stance from the Central Bank of Kenya, they've actually signaled to banks that please keep lending. If you look at the last two monetary policy committee meetings that we had, they've actually cut that signal rate. They're calling central bank rate. They've cut it twice. What they're signaling to the banks is that please,
central bank as the banker to bankers is making it easy for bankers to get money.
Yes.
But that's what it means when you lower the interest rate. But when you talk about, for instance, domestic borrowing, and you look at it in light of the availability of liquidity within the banks, don't you think that somewhere along the line there's a contradiction? Because this same liquidity that the central bank seems to be putting into place is absorbed by the very, very government.
That's good. Takes us back to fiscal discipline. So essentially, what is happening is that banks are, as you say, you rightly put it, banks are having it easy in terms of acquiring money.
From the bank, from CBK,
from the Central Bank of Kenya.
Yes.
But the understanding, the Central Bank of Kenya has made it easy for them to acquire money, and with the understanding that they're going to use this money to lend to the economy, right? But they're not doing that. But you can't blame them. I say one is the economic capacity to absorb more debt is already at maximum.
It's called breaking point.
The economy has hit by breaking point in terms of debt, both from the household and businesses.
Yes.
So the households are already too much indebted, right? And you can see the stories about household indebtedness to mobile lending platforms, right? So the households are already struggling. Disposable incomes are already come to zero. Businesses, on the other hand, are not doing very well. And we mentioned that they're cutting down capacity. A number of businesses are cutting down capacity. No business is actually increasing capacity today in this economy. I'm struggling to find any business that is expanding its factory or production capacity. Tax collection. They're hiring more. But back to my point is, if businesses are cutting down capacity, then it means the ability to borrow they're also doing away with the ability to borrow extra. So that means even in as much as the central bank makes it easy for banks to acquire money, then where are they going to put the money? The second thing also is that the government is crowding out the private sector by this aggressive
Borrowing.
borrowing that they're doing?
Yes. You see, my question, I'm going to simplify the question. Must banks make these enormous profits that they make? I know they're private entities. I know that is one of the mandates to make money for shareholders. You know what? They're nodding.
Pet subject.
It is. You see, banks are actually an integral part of economic growth. And I'm saying our model as we have it, they stifle growth. They don't encourage it.
Yeah.
Because their interest doesn't seem to be the people for whom it is meant. As I said before,
The shareholder.
that's the person they focus on. And even then, I sometimes wonder, how many wananchi do you know who are shareholders in banks? Ask them how much profit they actually make in terms of shares. You'll hear this pronouncement of this is the profit made. Wait for your
Bulk
dividends.
goes.
Oh, but the KCB has just reported results today. They made 25 billion shillings 2019.
Okay.
25
I would like to ask shareholder, the simple shareholder in KCB,
This is profit
not
after
the
tax.
megas.
Tell us how much it is that
how
you
much
then got
money,
in pocket.
the check that you
Or
get in.
yeah.
There was a time when people made money. You're a shareholder, money came to you. You could see it. I'm asking if that is true because I'm not certain. But why do I talk about the profits? It's almost immoral to have a situation where such amounts are being thrown around in terms of profit when the country is in the situation it's in. Not that they shouldn't do their business, but there is the interest, the common interest that one should also move to. Now, let me ask a question I want to ask. If the stock exchange collapsed completely, meaning completely, shares zero, what would happen?
Well, a couple of things. One is that, the stock exchange is a symbolic of capitalism, right? It's a center of financial activities. So it's in every government's effort to have that visibility kept up. That's why in 2008, when stock prices were collapsing and securities prices were collapsing in the United States, it took upon the Central Bank of the United States, the Federal Reserve, to pump in liquidity in the stock market, basically to make investors give investors money to go buy stocks so that stock prices can rise up again, right? The second thing is that the construction of the stock exchange, it's supposed to be a capital allocation center, right? So essentially, people have excess capital, they give it to deficient areas. So it's supposed to be an intermediation center for capital. Now, the collapse of the capital markets, and they're represented by the Securities Exchange, would also mean that a number of companies will not be able to get capital for expansion. So there's a symbolic aspect to it that we need to keep it up because, this is where companies can go and
to get money,
low-cost capital they could also go to the bank, but it's assumed that the capital markets will give them a more affordable finely priced capital for their business expansion.
So a collapse would also just mean collapse of industry.
So essentially, what you're saying is that if the stock market collapses, are you saying that the economy is collapsing?
Yeah. And I'm saying it actually is not a clear. It is actually a false indicator because even the stock market and how it's regulated, if you look at the way the government support it, there's something false about it. It isn't even organic. I'm going to explain why I'm saying what I'm saying. How many times has the stock market, say, collapsed in the UK, in the US, in the Western world? America has had the largest. 1929 was the first time we actually noticed, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, now what are the circumstances around it? Again, it built up, it came about. Did activity cease? What happened was this. Remember, during a time of, say, war, when industries either increase their production and after war, when there's no need for that, certain things take place.
Yeah.
So it's not that something is wrong, but there is a lack of preparedness for the aftermath.
To handle, right.
Now, what we are seeing, it's not as though KCB doesn't have clients or customers. It does.
Yeah.
But if we're to analyze where it gets most of its money, which constitutes the profit, it isn't the so-called mwananchi. So if the government is doing badly, KCB will do badly. Now, this ought not to be the case because the shareholders, the government may have interest, but the government is supposed to take interest, the interest of the rest of us. Now, the activities I'm referring to would mean the government has failed in its duties and the government has aided and abetted that particular move.
I didn't get the point myself.
My point is
because I think you went from stock exchange
I did.
to the
I
banking sector
I
again
did
to stock
I
exchange
did
to
deliberately.
government.
They're all related, and we are saying When we talk about banks, you talk about shareholders because they are stocks that are owned. Talk about any business entity that is worthwhile. Any business that seems to have some weight has stocks. It goes public, people buy an interest in it. And I'm saying the activities that these particular companies are involved in, unless it is completely false, they're real. KCB is in the banking business. Some are in the insurance business. Some are probably in the farming business. But the bottom line is this. Even when you hear that stocks have plummeted and have collapsed, one, people who would buy in and participate don't have money because of economic activities within the country. It's not that they don't want to buy. They can't buy. Right now, we have a housing problem in the country, right? It's not that people don't want to live in houses, don't want to
They
buy.
can't afford it.
Land this ship, City. I think you're still...
All right, let me speak slowly.
You said, let's take a break, and then you come back and tell us. Because you asked him the question, what would happen if the NSC collapsed? He responded. And then you said...
No, he went round.
Okay, he went round, in your opinion. But then he responded. And you came back and countered him and said, I don't believe that it's a true indicator.
No, it isn't.
So we'll come back to that and you'll tell us exactly why you don't believe it's a true indicator. 11 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice. Alright, okay. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Symbol they are.
Economies. They are an indicator of how an economy is performing.
Symbol they are. There's something that people in this line of business, I'm going to use just one term to explain it. It's called a bear market.
Yeah.
This often indicates what they also call panic selling, isn't it? And it is assumed that there's panic selling, that particular market will collapse. And I'm saying that is also not true, because he's not, because he knows it is. Remember, it is a market and there are players. And players have a say in what actually happens within that market. Not necessarily the people who hold shares. No. The people who control the actual stock exchange. Now, if you look at a country like ours, the vast majority of people who are employed are in the so-called informal sector, or as World Bank calls it, the hidden economy.
Yeah.
They may participate somewhat in this economy that we're speaking of, but it is not fundamental to existence.
Yeah.
So even if the stock market collapses, it's very unlikely that what they do on a daily basis will be grossly affected.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what I'm saying is, when something is representative, it also needs to represent the bulk of the population of this country. Number two, many people in our major towns do not necessarily rely on supermarkets. They rely for sugar, milk, and even that one not necessarily. A lot of the produce they eat comes from up country. It is sent to them by buses. Yeah. So even when someone tells you this is happening within the economy, it is true, but they actually don't rely on what you see them doing on a daily basis to survive. So if you use these market forces, and if you use the so-called stock exchange as a clear indicator, it points to certain aspects of the community, a certain segment of the community, but it's not really representative.
You're suggesting that the market is elitist, or?
I am. Thank you so much.
Yes, that's what he's saying.
It's not only elitist,
It's a
but
club.
It's actually a very nice club when it's working. It becomes a terrible club when it's not working. That's why I asked, when it collapses completely, this particular class of individual will be completely disenfranchised.
Yeah.
George,
You suddenly become poor overnight.
But I need to. You to a large extent you're right, because available academic literature also shows that the directional impact directionally, economy is what impacts the stock market, but the stock market doesn't impact. The empirical evidence could be different for the United States, but for Kenya, at least for now, we know that it's one way. It's a unidirectional impact.
It is. You see, my further argument with what we're saying is this. We talked about oil, talked about banking, talked about domestic borrowing. And Eric, forgive me for kiting and moving around. That was the pace of my mind, and it was getting to my mouth before I actually organized it properly.
Okay.
But many of these things are stage managed, in the sense that a lot of the problems that we have economically are things that can be brought to a halt if the people in charge simply did what they did. And as you call it, if just financial discipline was instituted, nothing really complicated.
Yeah.
It doesn't require some profound science. No, not really.
And let's head
and
back
it's something
there.
as simple as ensuring that your expenditure plans as a country are within your internal
your
resources.
means.
Yes, essentially.
A question from the people, George, is that, looking at the fluctuation in prices, looking at the drop that we've seen, the question is this the time to invest then for people when the prices are low?
Yeah, and the prices are low. In terms of timing, when they want to come to the stock market, I think this is the best time. But the challenge here is that the coronavirus impacts could actually stretch for some time. That could mean asset prices could actually remain depressed for some time.
So you can invest now, but have
but
your
the little
expectations should
upside,
not be.
what I'm saying is the upside may not be that great, actually. Yeah.
I see.
So they have to be careful on this, because
So observe.
we are actually projecting that for the rest of this year, economic activities globally are actually gone. Because you look at what's happening today. The airline business, the travel business will take some time to recover from this. And even a number of events that have been cancelled, some of them are being rescheduled all the way to October. November. So essentially, we factor in this year for the advanced economies. But that's a big worry, because Kenya as a country, we are highly connected with the global economy. So if there's a demand slack in Europe and the United States, what does it mean? Will they be able to buy our flowers, right? And a number of things that we export to those countries, what will be the demand like? Will we have tourists coming to Mombasa? So that's also a big worry.
Global recession?
Yes, global recession. That's something that we should factor in. Even as a country, we need to be prepared.
2020. Here we are. We are coming up with a budget policy statement that's talking about investing more and more into the big four.
No.
Aligning ourselves into supporting and anchoring the big four.
That thing must
this
be halted.
is our budget for 2020.
That thing must be halted.
This is the conversation that we ought to have.
Yes.
And we can actually even have more conversation on this particular one.
I agree with the Big Four agenda, and I have read the Budget and Appropriation Committee's report on the budget policy statement 2020, and they're very brutal with the budget. They're very, very brutal. They've poked holes. They poked holes on.
Tell us about this, please.
Yeah. They've poked holes on on Big Four. And one of the things that I agree with them is that the Treasury or the national government, represented with the National Treasury, they have not provided a results monitoring and evaluation framework for the Big Four agenda projects, right? So we talk about affordable housing. So what has been done so far?
What was expected?
We gave you, fine. Last year you came here, you said you earned X amount of money to do X that is contained in Big Four agenda. So what have you done so far with the money we gave you last year? You're still coming back again this year.
To ask for more
you want more money. What have you done? And I agree with them that we the kickoff for some of these flagship projects, it's not even there. Let's talk about affordable housing. How many houses have been constructed?
Yep. 230.
Yet the bulk of the allocation, as I outlined, the BPS
85,000.
BPS 24, there's a huge devotion of resources, financial resources, to Big Four. But the takeoff is not. It's literally.
poor.
But I fault the committee as well, because the committee is pointing to this. It had raised this same issue in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So in the last 2 years, you got the budget statement from the National Treasury. You went ahead and said, but we need this, we need the other. You didn't receive it. You approved the following year's budget. You didn't receive it. Now you're telling us, and they have not said, let's not approve this year's budget.
Actually, that's why I fault them. I still fault them, even though they were brutal and they criticized the budget. But they still went ahead and approved
They are approving.
an expenditure plan, a humongous expenditure plan with a very, very humongous budget deficit. I don't know how they're gonna finance the budget deficit.
We'll
I think
discuss
they
that.
should have actually said, okay, government, your spending plan is 3 trillion. You're projecting revenues of 2 trillion. Please, can you cut your expenditure? Stick it to 2 trillion.
Cut your
Expenditure.
No cloth.
cloth.
According to your coat. Cut your coat according to your cloth.
No, that, what you said is what makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of what is actually
Yes,
being
and that's
done.
what makes sense in this
That's what
country.
makes
To the
sense
National
here.
Treasury.
What should be
Cut
done?
your cloth
Yeah.
according to your coat.
George Bodo, we want to thank you very much for joining us. We'll invite you again so we can come and talk about budget and the budget making process, and especially what we've seen now from the National Treasury, the indication of how they want to spend the budget next year, where they want to raise that money from. It's a big conversation. We usually always have a proverb of the day, the day's proverb by C.T. Muga. What is today's proverb, C.T.?
Even a beautiful tree has a worm. This actually is a Zulu proverb. Now, to make it perhaps a little easier to understand, because people are thinking worm, tree, which trees have more worms? No. Why don't we look at a saying that many have come across, that all that glitters is not gold. Yes. That's to put it simply. Everything that appears to be good, when you're told to buy shares and it is a wonderful story, you must remember that, I'm contextualizing it, the people who are floating their shares are actually asking you to contribute to their business. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
What they're selling you is actually a piece of paper which tells you own a portion of the company. Now, when prices soar, you will do very well. When they plummet, you'll suddenly find that all you own is a piece of paper. All that glitters is not
You share the
gold.
profit, you share the losses.
Exactly.
Yes.
And every worm